Good evening, everybody. It's great to see you out tonight here in person, and hello to everybody who is participating virtually. It's good to see so many folks on Zoom. So welcome to our fifth public hearing of the New York City Charter Review Commission and the sixth overall meeting of this year. It's the first of our two public hearings that will be held in my home borough of Brooklyn. Antonio, we know it's your favorite borough of all of them as well. Today is the third of three issue forums that the commission will host to take a deep dive into very critical issues that are affecting our city. Today, we are focusing on public safety, and we will hear from a number of experts on these subjects. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Carlos Chisura, and I'm honored to serve as the chair of this commission. We are joined tonight by my colleagues, Commissioner Ken Nye and Commissioner Stephanie McGraw. Welcome. And virtually, we have Commissioner Max Rose and Commissioner Jackie Rowe Adams. So thank you very much. I would like to thank Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh for hosting us today. And thank you to the entire team here at FDNY for doing great things in general for our city and for being a very critical reason that New York is the greatest place in the world. So thank you for all that you do. And let me also thank our general counsel, who is seated to my left, and our executive director, Diane Savino, and the entire team for all of their work. Let me just quickly have our commissioners introduce themselves. Ken, I'm going to start with you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ken Nye. I'm very, very happy to see the turnout that we have here tonight in Brooklyn. What it tells me is that the issue of public safety is very important to everyone. And so that we're very eager to hear the expert testimony of everyone that's assembled in here tonight. And I don't want to take up any more of your time because I'd like to get right into it and hear what everyone has to say and what your testimony is going to be. So welcome again, and thank you very much for attending here and also virtually.
Thank you very much. Commissioner McGraw.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie McGraw. I am so excited to see you all here. We are here to hear your concerns. We're here because we are the voice to the voiceless, and we're here because public safety is something that is concerning all five boroughs. So we're just excited and very happy to be here.
Commissioner Jackie Rowe Adams.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. This is so important in our community, in our city, to talk about public safety and for everyone to get a chance to voice their opinion and to know what's going on in our city and in our communities. So thank you for coming out, and I'm looking forward to hearing your concerns and how we could get this fixed and work together. Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to Mayor Adams for putting this together.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Max Rose, are you on yet? No? Okay, we will hear from Max when he jumps on. So before we hear from our expert panelists and the members of the public, let me just say a couple of words to put in perspective why we are here. So let me just start by saying this is my third charter commission. I served on one for Mayor Bloomberg. I served on one for Mayor de Blasio, and now I'm honored to chair one for Mayor Adams. So three very different individuals put together three very different charter commissions because they understood the importance of reviewing our Constitution. So we are tasked with reviewing the entire city charter and recommending changes that would help city government work more efficiently and better serve New Yorkers. We will solicit recommendations and comments on how to improve city government from all folks, members of the public, leaders in government, and experts on various fields. At the end of the process, we will determine what proposals to take to the voters in the form of ballot questions that will appear on the November 5th general election ballot. One major difference from the last two commissions I've been on, has been the ability to present testimony and listen virtually. So we have in person, we have virtual, and we have, the ability to submit testimony online. So it is really so many ways of doing it. Tonight is the third in a series of meetings to hear ideas from the public on improving the charter. So we're going to do another input session in Brooklyn a week from today at Medgar Evers College, so that we really try and hit different parts of Brooklyn. And we will do our best to accommodate everyone who wishes to speak. You can check us out at www.nyc.gov/charter. And please submit comments, testimony, etc. in writing if you like. charterinfo@citycharter.nyc.gov between now and the close of business July 12th. Okay, we are ready to go. Let me start by welcoming, Antonio, I feel like I've introduced borough presidents for so long, but I like to introduce them the right way, which is, let me welcome the president of the great borough of Brooklyn, the Honorable Antonio Reynoso. So Antonio, please.
Thank you, Carlo. I really appreciate you. Thank you to the commission. Good evening, commissioners, and thank you for holding this hearing in the greatest borough in the city of New York, which is Brooklyn. I'm here because I would love to be proved wrong. To prove that this is more than political theater. To prove it's real by doing something real. The chance to review the governing documents of our city is rare and important. Despite the context from which this particular commission was born, the members on it have a responsibility to do right by this city and the power entrusted to them. So I want to take this opportunity to share two priorities that both would benefit from charter language change and are relevant to the themes that Mayor Adams has tasked you with reviewing: citywide comprehensive planning and support for community boards. Planning for public safety. There's too wide a gap how the city plans and how it invests in our communities. The Department of City Planning is limited by the lack of an explicit directive in the city charter. So they do not plan, they zone. The mayor's recent efforts through the City of Yes proposals have revealed that our current city charter only allows us to craft a chapter and not an entire book. We need to require the creation of a comprehensive planning framework that goes beyond zoning and supports the vision in the charter's preamble, which is to ensure that every person who resides in New York City has the opportunity to thrive. Comprehensive planning is a public safety issue. We get to safer communities by planning for them and investing in them. We know from our history that policies such as redlining generated cycles of investment in some neighborhoods and cycles of disinvestment in others. That's why today, someone born in East New York is expected to live until 79 years old, while their counterpart born 45-minute trip away by the 3 train in Brooklyn Heights is likely to live 4 years longer. Last year, my office released the comprehensive plan for Brooklyn, which seeks to eliminate racial, spatial, and structural disparities for communities across the borough. It covers 7 topics: healthcare, housing, environmental conditions, active living and transit, community services, jobs, and accessibility. In each of these areas, we see stark contrasts neighborhood to neighborhood in metrics such as life expectancy, school performance, access to parks and open space, the reach of transportation options, the safety of our streets, the air quality, and the prevalence of health challenges such as diabetes, asthma, and maternal mortality and morbidity. True public safety is not the absence of crime. It is the presence of a healthy and well-resourced and well-planned community. We achieve true public safety for our city by creating conditions that don't necessitate violence. The safest communities in our city are marked by the absence of encounters with police, not their presence. We should not be measuring how safe our communities are, but rather how just they are. Research has well established that determinants of health. We know that a healthy community has access to high-performing schools, accessible parks, and open space, diverse and affordable housing, well-paying jobs, and quality healthcare. A healthy community requires a healthy environment, one with clean air, clean streets, functional transit, and protection and mitigation from natural disasters. We need to begin to think of public safety through a similar lens for justice that can better address the sources of violence that harm our communities, cut the lives of our neighbors down too early, and place the burden of mismanaged investment and growth strategies heavily on low-income communities of color. Changes to the city charter can allow us to advance 4 forms of justice, which are environmental justice, structural justice, spatial justice, and procedural justice. All of these reinforce one key idea, that comprehensive planning is a tool for advancing public safety, and that comprehensive planning should be strengthened in the charter by requiring at a minimum a new growth and retention strategy. The zoning map alone is insufficient to help communicate a plan for how well we will accommodate future growth, retain certain critical employment centers, and guide development in our city. A future land use map would help us set forth a vision for how we anticipate change to happen while also ensuring greater alignment on, for example, preventing the erosion of land zoned for manufacturing, encouraging growth around key centers and transit, and implementing strategies to advance fair housing. This would provide another tool to prevent piecemeal planning decisions that are inconsistent with city priorities and policy. And now community boards. In practice, each community board is its own independent agency. However, due to their very small budgets, these boards cannot exercise the full complement of services generally performed by a city agency, including but not limited to procurement, human resources, and information technology support without assistance. In fact, because of their extremely limited budgets with no baseline increase since 2014, the boards often find it difficult to just maintain their basic charter mandated functions. Accordingly, the city charter tasks both borough presidents and the Civic Engagement Commission with providing technical assistance and training to community boards. However, my office is simply not funded to provide the full scope of support and technical assistance that the boards need to meet and exceed their charter mandated functions. And the Civic Engagement Commission is facing major proposed budget cuts that will hinder their already limited work in this area. The situation wherein 3 entities, the community boards themselves, the borough president's offices, and the CEC all have a role in ensuring that boards can carry out their duties, yet all 3 are underfunded and understaffed to do so. It is why I'm calling for the creation of a new office of community boards that would become a central resource for assisting community boards with technology, policies, and procedures, human resources, legal counsel, training, and other needs. No other city agency goes without vital support services, and the community board should not have to either. We can't be short-sighted in our views of public safety and fiscal responsibility. We will inherit the future that we plan for and invest in. The city charter issues a challenge to each of us to act intentionally to remedy these past and continuing harms and to reconstruct, revise, and reimagine our foundations, structures, institutions, and laws to promote justice and equity for all New Yorkers. Thank you again for holding this hearing today, and I hope you would take these recommendations into consideration as you develop your proposed ballot measures, and don't forget to spread love. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Borough President. So I'm intrigued by your Office of Community Boards. And as you know, I spent many years managing the process that your new chief of staff will now have to do at Borough Hall. Give me a sense of how, if you've thought it through, how you would envision this office to look like.
Yeah, so the primary functions of like a back office, we're talking about HR support. Every single community board, even though it's an independent agency, has to hire staff. The staff has to go through our books, has to run through our office, and has to go through our background checks and so forth. It isn't necessarily an independent hire. It's one that we get to influence if possible and shouldn't have to because it's an independent agency. It's one example of the work we do. We're negotiating leases for community boards. It's completely independent of Borough Hall. Outside of our general counsel, which we share with community boards, the review of these documents should also not be in our care. All of this causes a significant amount of liability for the borough president's office when, again, the community boards are completely independent agencies, each and every single one of them. So what we're trying to do is like untie that and have the community boards have their own agency that can follow through and support them on all of these tasks that are necessary that are backfilled. In the city charter specifically speaks to agencies that are supposed to be supporting the community boards, which very rarely happens. And also that our job is simply technical assistance. And if you're talking about putting on a full deck of office and management and budget work as basic technical assistance, then we would be considering OMB in this city as a technical assistance office when we know it's not. It's a very robust office with tons of resources that allows us to carry our backroom work. The same thing should be happening here with community boards.
Great. You wouldn't change the appointment process.
I would not change the appointment process. It's not something that I think is in dire need of change, but it's something I would be open to having a conversation about exactly how the community board appointments happen. But I think that task is a little more difficult.
Yes,
Carlo.
yes.
I'd rather stay away
I would
from that
agree
one.
with you.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Thank you very much, Borough President.
Thank you so much, Carlo.
Appreciate
Thank
you
you to the
being here.
commissioners. Appreciate you all.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call our first panel, NYPD Deputy Commissioner Robert Barrows, FDNY Assistant Deputy Commissioner Jason Shelley, Department of Correction Deputy Chief of Staff Howard Singer, and from the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, J. Carolina Chavez. We may need one more chair up there for you. Okay, and if you can just introduce yourself, full name and title. Sir, you want to start?
Good evening, Howard Singer, Deputy Chief of Staff, Department of Correction.
Jason Shelley, Assistant Commissioner, FDNY.
Bob Barrows, Deputy Commissioner of Strategic Initiatives at NYPD.
Carolina Chavez, First Deputy Director, Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice.
Great, thank you all for being here. So if you each would like to present your testimony, and then we'll offer some questions.
Good evening. My name is Howard Singer. I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff of the Department of Correction, and on behalf of the Commissioner of the Department of Correction, I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you today. Before I begin my testimony, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the unfortunate on-duty passing of one of our correction officers, Robert Boone. Officer Boone suffered a medical episode this past Tuesday while at work and tragically passed away later that evening. Officer Boone boldly served our department for close to 13 years. We extend our deepest condolences to Officer Boone's family, friends, and coworkers. Thank you.
Thank you.
The New York City Department of Correction is dedicated to maintaining safe and humane jails that provide individuals in our care with a path to successfully re-enter their communities. Those in the department's custody include individuals 18 years of age and older who are awaiting trial, who have been convicted and sentenced to less than 1 year of incarceration, and persons held on state parole warrants. The department currently operates 7 facilities housing people in custody, all of which are located on Rikers Island, with more than 7,500 diverse professionals, both uniform and non-uniform. The department also operates court holding facilities in each of the 5 boroughs and 2 hospital prison wards. The department houses an average daily population of over 6,300 individuals. Justice involvement is driven by many different factors, including mental illness, poverty, gang affiliation, and lack of economic and educational opportunities. It is our goal that individuals released from DOC custody have less adverse contact with the justice system in the future, and we work hard to ensure that those in our care are provided with resources that support a safer environment in the jails and successful reentry into the community. We are equally focused on ensuring that the uniform and non-uniform staff that work within our jails are supported in doing one of the most challenging jobs in law enforcement. Considering our role in these significant responsibilities, we would like to propose charter revisions and their potential impact on public safety. Our responsibility is to ensure that any change to the laws and principles that guide our actions are based on sound correctional practices, which allow the department the flexibility necessary to safely manage our city's jail system. Our recommendations are as follows. Sunset clauses for all reporting bills. We believe in transparency, but are overburdened with reporting and are often required to report on outdated metrics or in outdated ways that pull our staff away from their core duties. Next is language throughout the city charter should be gender neutral. Language throughout the DOC section of the charter should be revised to replace the terms prisoner or inmate with individual in custody or something similar. Section 623 of the charter should be amended to add paragraph 7. Except as otherwise provided by law, the Commissioner shall have the authority to maintain security to ensure the safety of those who work and live in correctional facilities, but not limited to monitoring phone calls and departmental-issued electronic devices of individuals in custody, conducting facility searches and placement of individuals in custody in restrictive housing areas. A section 628 should be added. The commissioner or their designee shall have the ability to request in writing that the Speaker of the Council assess the financial and operational impact of a local law. If there is reasonable evidence, it will hinder the department's ability to engage in the safe and financially sound operation of the city's correctional facilities. The council should then issue a response to the commissioner or their designee within 30 days of receiving the request. As with all city institutions, we are committed to serving the public interest, working with our city council colleagues, and fostering policies that serve the public's trust. As stewards of public safety, we value and remain ever committed to being transparent, relying on sound best correctional practices, and believe that these recommendations will support our agency's mission to improve our jails, as our city deserves nothing less. Thank you for your time. We look forward to reviewing the suggestions that are made to the commission and the recommendations that you will issue. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one question. Shoot.
Hi, I just wanted you to elaborate a little more, this is going so fast, and thank you for your testimony.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Could you just elaborate a little bit on section 628?
Mhm. Well, many of these local laws that have been put into effect, we have realized that there hasn't been enough input from us as an agency and also other experts. So based on these types of laws that are put into effect, depending on what they are and how they can, because a lot of these laws can affect the
Oh, I'm sorry.
the operations of our agency, specifically as it relates to staffing. So we would just want to make sure that we are consulted with these types of inquiry, these types of laws that are put into effect. We think it's because obviously we know as anybody that runs an agency, they know the agency the best. So we would just want to have the opportunity to express what our concerns are in a timely fashion.
Great.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Cicera, Vice Chair Dr. Dukes, Executive Director Savino, and members of the Mayor's Charter Revision Commission. My name is Jason Shelley. I'm Assistant Commissioner for External Affairs of the New York City Fire Department. I want to welcome members of the commission, my fellow witnesses, and members of the public to FDNY Headquarters. On behalf of the fire department, it's our honor to host a gathering of civic-minded leaders and individuals who are working together to improve the way our city functions. I thank Mayor Adams and the attendees here for the opportunity to briefly discuss potential changes to the fire department section of the charter. One potential area of consideration for the Charter Revision Commission that is of interest to the fire department is strengthening fiscal responsibility safeguards around unfunded legislative mandates. As others have testified in prior hearings, laws passed by the city council that require city agencies to expend resources should take effect in a way that does not create a financial disruption for the agencies. Even seemingly small obligations can significantly add up over time, especially as the council continues to create more of them. It is critical that, to the greatest degree possible, the fire department is able to devote its resources to emergency response and serving members of the public. To illustrate this problem, I'll discuss the example of required reports to the city council. The fire department is frequently on the receiving end of new reporting obligations. These require labor and resources to compile. From the outside, it may be tempting to consider each individual report and assume that the burden required is essentially negligible. Some reporting requirements are good ideas with which everyone agrees. However, each takes time to compile, to perform quality assurance, to package and prepare as a report. This diverts the time and attention of fire department personnel. Rather than performing their primary role supporting emergency response, key members of units from across the department are instead forced to focus on the creation of paperwork and reports to the council. A single report about the fire department response times to medical emergencies, as was passed in 2014, does not seem on its face to constitute a huge burden. However, the devotion of resources to that annual report is done in the context of a large number of other periodic reports, many of which must be compiled simultaneously. To give you an idea of just a few of our many periodic reports, laws have been passed creating obligations such as a quarterly report on the number of instances of opioid antagonists administered, disaggregated by borough, division, and type of opioid antagonists, a report on whether each smoke alarm found in certain types of fires would ionic, or photoelectric in type. A report on EMS staffing by division, including descriptions of each geographic area, including their square mileage, and formal and commonly known names of each geographic division. A report describing fire education outreach to R2 occupancies. A report on the number of fire hydrants inspected, aggregated citywide, and disaggregated by borough and city council district. These are some of the reports added over just a 2-year period during the previous administration. Many others have been added since. Other legislative proposals may affect operations, staffing, and enforcement. Taken as a whole, these unfunded mandates end up requiring significant labor and diverting resources from other work that the department might better spend on operational functions that more directly serve members of the public in their time of need. Changes to legislative requirements that strike a better balance on fiscal responsibility would be welcome. We also urge the Commission to use this opportunity to update the fire department section of the charter to reflect the modern operations of the fire department. The section frequently refers to the fire commissioner and fire chiefs as men, and it employs gendered language throughout. This outdated terminology is especially antiquated in light of Mayor Adams' historic appointment of Laura Kavanaugh as the first woman commissioner of the New York City Fire Department. It's also counterproductive as the fire department strives to recruit more women firefighters. There are other areas in which the existing language could be modernized to reflect the FDNY of 2024, and we'd be happy to work with the Commission on identifying potential revisions. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I look forward to working with the Commission to make this great city even better.
Just a question on the gender neutrality. Is that something the city council can do by legislation and just fix that?
I'd have to check on that, but as long as we're opening up the
The
charter.
city council's general counsel, who was my general counsel at Borough Hall many moons ago, seems to be giving me a thumbs up. I mean, it's crazy that in 2024 we still have this. So we should all agree tonight, somehow let's fix that together. But
100%.
I agree with you.
Good evening, and thank you to the Charter Revision Commission. Once again, I'm Bob Barrows. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Strategic Initiatives for the New York City Police Department. On behalf of Police Commissioner Edward Caban, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to testify before the Commission and alongside our public safety partners. The NYPD's mission is simple and direct: drive down crime and keep people safe. Fulfilling that mission, however, is some of the most complex and demanding work in our city. Fortunately, for the millions of people who call New York City home, the professionals who make up the NYPD and do this work in all 5 boroughs are among the best in the world. They are remarkable women and men who have taken an oath to help others and secure the greatest city in the world. And New Yorkers have been the beneficiaries of their efforts. So far this year, major crime in New York City is down 2%. With murders, burglaries, and grand larceny autos down at or near double digits. And as we've said from the beginning of this administration, our focus remains on ending gun violence and protecting the lives of New Yorkers. Year to date, shooting incidents are down over 9%, and shooting victims are down 8%, prolonging the downward trend we've experienced over the last 2 years with this administration. The work of this commission presents an extraordinary opportunity to address and enhance the public consideration process surrounding public safety legislation. As we all know, one of the most basic obligations of government is to protect public safety. So it's crucial that when local legislation affects the operations, training, or enforcement capability of our public safety agencies, that the public has a real opportunity to participate in the deliberative process. The police department is supportive of this commission's efforts to consider ways to extend the period for consideration of public safety legislation before the city council, enhance the deliberative process and legislation pertaining to public safety, and strengthening opportunities for public input on legislation relating to public safety. The charter already recognizes these core principles when considering local land use legislation. But given government's basic duty to protect its citizens, a similar process should be contemplated for local public safety legislation. There are therefore 3 specific ways the Charter Revision Commission can help increase the transparency and efficiency of the public safety legislative process. First, allowing more public input on bills that implicate public safety, an issue of great importance to all 8.3 million residents of this city. Second, encouraging lawmakers to engage directly with the agencies a proposed bill may impact, so that any final legislation is as sound and practical as possible. And third, greater investigation into the financial impact of proposed bills. In order to cast the widest net possible and give New Yorkers a say in how their communities are policed, the NYPD often hosts its community precinct council meetings, build the block meetings, community CompStat meetings, and other public safety related town halls and summits in the evening, outside of normal business working hours. We often change the dates and the start times of these meetings. We hold multiple ones to accommodate the schedules of our community members. We do these engagements across the 5 boroughs. Similarly, when conducting our 2021 Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative, where we needed to solicit public feedback, the NYPD held multiple public town halls and meetings in every borough with a variety of start times to accommodate the community. The mayor's community conversation town halls follow a similar model in order to ensure that everyday working New Yorkers can participate in the public dialogue. A similar model with a focus on increasing public participation and multiple opportunities for input should be considered for legislative hearings, rather than continuing to host them at a set time during working hours at City Hall. In introducing legislation that impacts the operations of an agency, a duty of good faith by local legislators to communicate and discuss with that agency prior to introduction of a bill should also be considered. In the NYPD's experience, the most productive and sensible legislation is usually the result of a council member reaching out and engaging with the agency beforehand to discuss an issue or problem, and then exploring a potential solution before a bill is introduced. And one of those solutions could be that the bill is introduced. This dialogue should be encouraged, and enshrining it in the charter preserves this important exchange. The NYPD is the most transparent police department in the world. It is simply in a class of its own when compared to other local police departments, when taking account of the amount of public data it releases either voluntarily or through legislative mandate, the amount of data sets it releases on the city's open data portal, the over 20,000 FOIL requests it fulfills each year, body-worn camera footage it releases to the public, the amount of public dashboards available, and other information released to the public. And while we do not wish to step away from our proud tradition of transparency, measures to address the ever-increasing public reporting mandates created by local legislation should be considered by this commission. Most of the NYPD's public reporting is generated by its Office of Management Analysis and Planning. The acronym is OMAP, which is under my command. To date, OMAP is required to produce over 40 different public data reports, varying on an annual, quarterly, or monthly basis that are mandated by local legislation. In addition, the police department often has to provide data to other city agencies in order for those agencies to complete their local reporting requirements under local law. This reporting is done in addition to all of the critical crime reporting the NYPD does to the New York State Department of Criminal Justice Services and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. While the department absolutely believes
I'm just
transparency.
going to ask you to try and wrap up,
Sorry, so-
because we have a lot of speakers tonight.
So I would just say, while some of those reports should continue in perpetuity, others should be more closely scrutinized. And moreover, there should be more of a focus on financial impact as well on a lot of this legislation. So I'll conclude with that. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you on behalf of the NYPD. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. And we have a copy of your testimony
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Before I introduce you, let me welcome Commissioner Kyle Bragg and Commissioner Chris Lynch, who has joined us virtually. Thank you. Ma'am, you're up.
Good evening, members of the Charter Revision Commission. My name is Carolina Chavez, and I am the First Deputy Director for the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, also referred to as MOCJ. On behalf of MOCJ and Director Deanna Logan, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to tell you about our work a little bit, just a little bit, because I know we're under a time crunch, and to discuss how New Yorkers can be made safer through charter changes that encourage good government, foster community engagement, and provide greater transparency. I think a lot of what I'll say probably echoes what my colleagues have said here already. But just for a little bit of background, MockJ serves as Mayor Adams's coordinator for and an advisor on the criminal justice system. MockJ is the only agency that is charged with helping to improve and maintain fairness and efficiency of the system as a whole, beyond just city agencies like PD and the Department of Correction, but also in support of stakeholders who are not part of city government. Those stakeholders include the courts, the district attorney's office, the institutional defenders, and ever more increasingly, the community organizations who work in partnership with government to ensure and improve public safety and foster greater communication and trust between law enforcement and the community that they serve. It is from this unique position that MockJ has seen the city go through major changes in the public safety landscape, through the changes to the criminal procedure laws of 2020, a global pandemic, and more recently, crime patterns that highlight the need for smart, inclusive, policy-led approaches to public safety. There's much work to do to build on the successes of this administration, and we welcome the public's ability to vote on amending the charter to include the residents of New York City more in the honing of the city's joint vision for public safety. Accordingly, we support reforms that would improve transparency, invite greater input from the community and across a diverse range of voices that exemplify our great city, and protect the integrity and the trust needed in our city legislative process as it weathers not only the current challenges, but also the challenges that are to come, creating a more efficient system in the long run. Thanks again for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. So it sounded like a couple of themes I've heard from all four of you: transparency, more public input on legislation that affects the places where you are, and fiscal responsibility, fiscal integrity. Am I correct in that?
Yes, I think you're correct. And just to kind of highlight the point, again, I think all of the agencies here at the table believe in transparency, but when these bills, which, you know, have continued to add up, are enacted, they're more than just transparency bills. Because if it's a bill that gets passed, and then let's say the agency doesn't already collect that data, right? There's a whole process that has to happen, right? It requires the agency to amend policy, like at the NYPD, we'd be amending our patrol guide. We'd be making modifications to tech systems to capture the data. We then have to create training to train our officers to collect that information that we can eventually report. And then obviously there's a whole communications plan that goes with it. All of that has some sort of cost, right? And it varies depending on the type of bill that gets passed. And that really needs to be accounted for when this legislation is contemplated.
Forgive my ignorance, and I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. If a council member or the council has an idea on a legislation that affects either of your worlds, would they come to the commissioner and say, hey, we're thinking of doing this? Or on the flip side, if the commissioner has an idea, would a commissioner go to a council member and say, hey, we think this might help something here? Is there that type of coordination?
I mean, I can.
Yeah, and anyone can jump into that.
I can, yeah.
Yeah. I'll say it varies. Frankly, the better council members will consult the agency ahead of time. And as Bob mentioned, you end up with better legislation when that happens. But it's not infrequent that you find out about a new idea from a council member from a bill that has been drafted that frankly doesn't make sense.
Just echo that as well. It's very similar where some may reach out to us to discuss certain legislation, but a lot of times it's not occurring. And again, even when it's reached out, how far they're actually speaking to us and with certain staff members that have the expertise within our agency has been an issue where we find that's not occurring. And then the legislation, it gets introduced. And by that point, we're at a point where the discussions are almost non-existent. And again, not happening all the time, but it does happen.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? Kyle, yeah.
One, I'd just like to apologize for my delay. Unfortunately, I take the railroad in and it broke down on me. So I'm sorry if I missed earlier testimony. I hope that I will have copies of that testimony.
We have copies.
And I'd also would just say that, I've been on the record in my objections to some of this legislation that has been proposed in regards to changing some of the rules and regulations for the NYPD. So thank you for your testimony.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let me welcome another great Brooklynite, our public advocate, Jamani Williams. Public advocate, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody. Peace and blessings. Love and light to everyone. Thank you to the chair and the board itself. So that you'll have that's not the most up-to-date one, so they're gonna be.
You're gonna give us a new one.
Well, yeah, it's probably tomorrow.
Got it.
As mentioned, my name is Jamani Williams, a public advocate for the city of New York. I want to thank the members of the Charter Review Commission for holding this hearing today that will focus on public safety and allowing me the opportunity to testify. Please know that my testimony will address a few issues aside from public safety as well. Every budget season, we recognize that budget is a moral document, but the same is also true of our city's charter. It defines the organization, functions, and essential procedures and policies of our government. The last revisions to the charter included 19 ballots proposals combined into 5 questions and approved overwhelmingly by voters in 2019. These revisions are the culmination of a 15-member committee created by Local Law 91 of 2018, with members being appointed proportionally by 9 different elected officials. 4 members were appointed by the mayor, 4 by the Speaker of the Council, and 1 apiece by the public advocate, the comptroller, and borough president. While I commend the progress achieved by those revisions, and as we find ourselves today before another Charter Revision Commission, I recognize that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. In 2013, a memo to mayoral candidates written jointly with myself and then Councilmember Dan Garodnick, we highlighted one of the goals sought by voters in the 1989 city charter revisions, strong city council oversight over the mayoral administration. 35 years later, we finally have a proposal on the table to empower the council's power of advice and consent, but there's still room for improvement on the budget process. 2 of the requests highlighted in the memo include proposals to provide tighter definition around units of appropriation in the expense budget, require service level information and performance measures for each of unit of appropriation, as well as proposals to revise the definition of capital projects in the charter. With rising costs, and our city must ensure that our capital and expense budgets are truly working for New Yorkers. In addition to these budgetary asks, I would like to request independent funding for the Commission on Public Information and Communication, COPIC, which was created in 1989 to improve the public access to city information. Due to budgetary constraints, COPIC has been unable to produce the annual data directory since 1993. And while the city's open data law now maintains much of the city's public information, not all information is subject to open data. COPIC would be a useful tool filling those gaps, especially as the city begins to archive data and shift away from the costly defunct enterprise vault system. COPIC is something under charter that's under the public advocate's purview as well. Further, in the last charter, the Office of the Public Advocate was granted a more independent budget. This has helped strengthen the office. Additional power that was requested to strengthen the public advocate was subpoena power. This would assist in providing more meaningful oversight of city agencies. Subpoena power would create an effective tool for the public advocate's office to dig deeper into and illuminate issues of concern. Lastly, and more directly to the topic of public safety, I'd also like to call on this meeting to explore what a different modality of multi-agency rapid response would look like for shootings. I've worked on these issues for many years since becoming a council member. I was proud of the work we did to create the crisis management system with the gun violence task force. I co-chaired. One of the commission members, Ms. Jackie Adams, was on that task force as well. The work of the crisis management system has helped lower gun violence in neighborhoods around the city. But as we've seen in our communities, far too often situations can escalate quickly, bringing danger even to those not directly involved. We did see a 12-year decline in gun violence after that crisis management system was created. In addition, the past few years has seen some stagnation in thought and creativity. Having agencies collaborate on these encounters as they do in instances of natural hazards will give us an additional comprehensive understanding of the systemic factors at play. For example, when there's a school shooting, there is an immediate response there should be an immediate response, including agencies such as the Department of Education, New York City Police Department, Small Business Services, Department of Youth and Community Development, Administration for Children's Services, Department for Health and Mental Hygiene, as well as housing agencies, Department of Housing and Preservation Development, and the New York City Housing Authority. This would provide a support systems that would remain in place long after the shooting occurs. Much like the mayor touted in his January 22 blueprint to end gun violence, I believe there could be a charter mandated office to support and expand that kind of work, as well as a CMS, and it could include additional stakeholders in the conversation to grow the effectiveness of the program. I think those persons could report directly to the commissioner. When we see a police shooting, we obviously see the response of the NYPD. Sometimes we see additional infrastructure put into those schools. At some point, the PD will be pulled back. We should also see a response from other agencies immediately to figure out what they can do. And I think the same could be held in terms of communities that are dealing with high rates of gun violence. There's a lot of other things that we can do to address gun violence as well. Been trying to rack my brain to figure out how the charter can help. I think that's one way that we really provide more eyes on this to really get to where we need to go. Thank you. I look forward to answering any questions folks have.
Thank you, Public Advocate. I appreciate you being here. Questions, comments from the members? So I just want to follow up. I think you, I'm intrigued by your idea of a multi-agency response. Just give me a little bit more on that.
So I think school shooting is the best, or school violence is the best. One, I think there's always arguments about, and everybody gets excited about school safety agents, the metal detectors. By the way, I've never supported a plan that would fire school safety agents. I did think we should try to figure out how to better use the resources we have, and it's not always NYPD. And many of the schools have had the same infrastructure there for a long time. If you have to have a metal detector in a school for a decade, you've probably done something wrong. So we should probably figure out, well, how can we at some point remove that infrastructure and still have a school that's safe? And so when there's a school shooting, we respond because it's acute and it's correct to have NYPD respond. But at some point, they're going to pull back. And so if you have a multi-agency, if you have a, say, an anti-violence or anti-gun violence person in each agency, they too can respond to that school. And folks can sit down and figure out, well, what caused this violence? It's probably not the first time. Are there other issues going on there? What's happening with the young people? How can these agencies respond? There have been ideas, and I think MOCJ as well has tried to figure out how to do this. But I think mandating it in each agency and having that person respond to the commissioner on a regular level of that agency, have them respond to some of the scenes that are going on and really engage with some of the community groups that are there and know what's happening on the ground, as well as, say, a school, I think will really help us get different tools in there and a different plan. Because if all you're going to do is send law enforcement, you're not going to solve that problem. So if there's a plan in place, we can say, okay, we're going to send law enforcement right after this shooting happened. When they leave, here's the resources that are going to be there. And at some point, we can say, we're actually going to be pulling back some of the other policing infrastructure that's there. And here's a plan that's going to replace it to keep a community safe. I think something similar can happen in neighborhoods. Right now, we have thankfully seen shootings and murders begin to decline, except for certain communities like Brownsville. Why would we not see agencies inundating that community with resources? And we do see those communities inundated with one resources usually, and that's usually law enforcement. But there's so much more that can be done there. And I think having a dedicated person that reports to the highest level can really help the conversation move forward and get the resources there a lot quicker.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Jackie Rowe Adams, I know you had a comment.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so thank you for your testimony tonight. I am so glad, Jemani, that we are having this commission hearing, because it gives everyone an opportunity, citywide, community-wide, to hear the concerns of the community, what's going on, and giving us an opportunity to be the voice for the voiceless and to give people a chance to have their voices heard. But just let me say, it takes all of us. And I'm glad that we are going around the different boroughs, because it takes all of us. As you said, And it takes the elected officials, it takes the police, it takes the mayor to work with the mayor and work with the organizations that's out there on the ground. And I heard you mention my name earlier, right? Because we started back a long time ago. And it's still going on. And we have a lot of work to do, as you said. And I'm just so glad that you gave this testimony, because we have a lot of work to do together. And of course, you know, I'm on the charter, but I'm also out there in the community. And you know, I will hold you to it and you'll hold me to it. So let's get it done together, and we're going to stand together, and we're going to make sure that this works for the city, because it's about saving our kids and saving lives and working with NYPD. And nothing could replace them right now, but NYPD, but replaced by us putting things in action and working together as a team. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you, Commissioner. Kyle?
Good. Am I able to respond?
Oh, yeah, please.
Thank you, Ms. Adams, for that. And your personal story is very traumatic, and the things that you've gone through. And I appreciate you taking that pain and trying to turn it into purpose. And I appreciate the work we did on the task force and various panels. And as you mentioned, our law enforcement have an important parts to play. I do believe if you ask people in communities, very often people would talk about the conversation they have with computers and the communities, and they say they want more law enforcement. But too often they forget about the other questions, because if you ask them if they wanted additional housing they can afford, if they want additional school programs, if they want additional mental health services, if they want additional, a lot of things, they would say yes. But very often we stay on that one question and we don't get to the rest of it. And so they don't get those other things. So what we're trying to do is make sure that those other things are in play. And I believe if many of those other things were in play, the need for continuing to try to ask our law enforcement to do everything would fall back. And our law enforcement actually don't want to be doing everything. Many of these things they would say they don't want to do. But we have to, I think one of the best ways we can support them is to stop asking them to do all of the jobs that so many agencies and others have to be playing.
Kyle?
Thank you, Public Advocate, for being here and giving testimony. As you know, I live in Southeast Queens. I lost my nephew to gun violence. I agree with you that the police, there need to be more resources to stopping violence, both on the streets and in our schools, than just the police. There needs to be a partnership to make sure that our streets and our schools are safe. And I'm not sure if I heard you correctly, but you talked about removing some of the things that, like metal detectors from schools, which I would strongly disagree with. And I'll give you an example of why. Just 3 days ago, on my lawn, I had to intercede in between young middle school kids in a fight. One of them pulled a knife out of his book bag, and I had to actually physically get between them so that there wasn't a stabbing on my lawn. And so, as I do agree with you that the police cannot be the sole resource, that there must be resources in conjunction with the police and working seamlessly together with the police to make sure that our communities and our kids are safe, both in school and on the streets. I would strongly disagree with some of the instruments that are in place now to keep our kids safe within the schools. And I think public safety officers are very important in that mix. So I know some things you and I have discussed and we agree on, some things we will disagree on, but I think we all agree that our schools and our streets can be much safer if we provide resources that work in conjunction and together with our policing.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you for bringing that up so there can be a clarification. I think people, when they hear removal of policing infrastructure, it sounds like, okay, we're going to move in tomorrow and do that. What I believe is right now we have issues of violence, and we've seen that increase across the nation. Thankfully, it's going down. We've seen it gone up with our young people. And so what we do know, we want to make sure they're safe in school. We want to make sure they're safe on the way to school and on the way home. And unfortunately, sometimes we see violence happening even on the way to school and back home. Sometimes we've seen it happening in school, even if some of those things are present. So what I've said is we should at least be dreaming of the world where we remove those things. Because if we can't dream of that world, we'll never get to it. And so if we can dream of the world where we don't need metal detectors, when we don't need the wanding, What does that look like? So let's all together dream, how do we get to that? And so I don't know that if there's a school that had a problem, we do that tomorrow, but if we all sat down and said, well, what is the problems in these schools? How can we get to a spot where we're removing this? And let's put those things in place. Because when I was in school, and probably when you were in school, you're a little older than me, man, so I'm gonna say that. But when they probably had some of the same communities dealing with the same issues. That should have fixed it 20, 30 years later. And if it hasn't, we're probably doing something wrong. It might be safe in that school, possibly, but when they're on their way home, they may still get injured. I'm so thankful you were there to interrupt that from happening. It's the type of person you are. But I think you would agree with me, that's a dream we should have. We should have that dream. But how do we get there if we don't speak about it? And every time we go to speak about it, sometimes the words get crossed. And when it came to school safety agents, the plans that we had have always been up on our website. They're still there. I was very clear, we cannot fire 5,000 Black and brown, particularly women who are there, but we can't figure out how we use them. Does it have to be under the NYPD? Can there be another plan? And so what I said was that let's figure out how we can reimagine what public safety looks like, including those public safety agents that were there. But sometimes when we have these conversations, people hear different things, and then we start yelling at each other. But I think if we can all agree, we want to create a world where we don't need that in our kids' school. And then how do we figure out how we actually get there and put the infrastructure and support in place so that we can pull them back? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, Public
Thank you.
Advocate. I am here and I'm just so honored to be a part of this commission, but I'm also here because I have lived in a lot of violence throughout my life. And what we have done working with NYPD, we didn't talk about it. We just got out there and reimagined how we wanted to work. And we became a critical response to domestic violence in our community. But what I've been seeing since I've been out here, because we knee deep in the streets, you know, we're not behind the desk, we're not up there on the 15th floor, we're in the streets because we are embedded and invested in our community. And that's why I'm so honored to be on this commission, charter review, because we have been in the streets and we understand some of the issues in public safety for all you New Yorkers. But we've been seeing a lot of like disconnect with some of the groups that have been established. You said the queer violence groups are in the school, right? But we don't see where there's a lot of synergy and a lot of working together with the NYPD. And I know that when something happens in New York City, the first thing people are going to do, they're going to call 911, right? And when there is a domestic violence call, we are out there with NYPD to respond to this. So I'd like to see if there can be, you know, because you said bringing all these groups together, but a lot of these groups, I see there's a lot of turmoil with these groups and NYPD. So how do we begin to do that when the turmoil? Do you have any suggestions how we can bring that together? Because I think there's strength in numbers. And I think if we can come together in one accord and one alignment to work together as a whole, it will resolve a lot of issues. So I'd like to hear, how do you propose that we bring all these groups together? Because I like that idea. When after the police leave, or how do we come together and respond in these schools and the shootings or domestic violence?
Thank you for that. There was a lot there. I'm going to try to unpack some of it, and it's really, really important. One, I do think some of the problem is that we only have 911 to call. So I think there's a mental health crisis in particular, that might not be the best number to call for people who are looking to get a medical response. That's one. And if you ask law enforcement themselves, very often they don't want to be responding to many of those. They don't necessarily have the tools. And it might be a case that they are needed, but the fact that they're the go-to first responders for those can cause additional problems. I think what happened with the crisis management system, to be quite honest, I think it was effective and has been effective. But I think in most things, sometimes politics gets involved. That can be even worse when money's involved. So I think people are figuring out how to get contracts, which is important. But I think the creativity of how we work together, that conversation needs to be pushed a little bit further. And there needs to be some more support of that. There has been some tension that has brewed sometimes between the community groups and the NYPD. We talk about it, but I'm not sure what we're actually doing to try to get that tension away. And I think there's sometimes misunderstanding of what those groups do versus what the NYPD does. So when we say working together, I'd rather maybe say complement each other because some of the work that they do in the interrupters, they can't necessarily be working, quote unquote, with, depending what that means with the NYPD, or they lose credibility in the ability to do the work on the ground. So we want to make sure that folks are complementing each other, doing the job that they can do and leaving the job that they can't to the other person. And sometimes that's a hard conversation to have, but we should have it. I think we talk about it when an incident occurs, and then we kind of let it go, and then it festers again. But it's really important because both folks are really trying to do their job to keep folks safe. And violence interrupters and community groups have gotten shot as well. They try to step in, and we should honor that, as well as understand that our law enforcement has a role to do, but they should honor the work they're doing as well. We have, just throwing money at it without building out infrastructure isn't going to work. What I was speaking about in terms of coming together included agencies. And I think having a point person in each agency that does this work and understands it and responds and reports to the commissioner will help us come together in a way that we aren't right now. And I know it's difficult, but it's work that we have to be doing. The problem is, for however many years, all we know is 24 hours a day, call 911, you get a law enforcement. We have to build something else, which is going to take time, but you have to take intention to do it. And if we don't do it now, I don't know when it's going to happen. We have all the parts in place. We have the people who've come from these communities in place. If we don't take the time to build out the infrastructure that we all say we need, I'm worried that when my kids grow up, it's going to be the same thing. When I'm in a room, I often ask young people if they know someone who's been shot, they say yes. I ask older folks if they know people who've been shot, they say yes. Those questions should be answered differently. Because when I was younger, the heavy presence of law enforcement in our communities I was told to stop the violence that's occurring. So why is another generation experiencing that same violence? We can't simply arrest the children of the people we arrested 20 years ago, because we tried that and it didn't work. That doesn't mean that that's not a tool that we shouldn't be using. It just means we can't just use that tool alone, because Mr. Bragg is trying to split up a fight on his lawn. Some of those things shouldn't be happening now, since we've used this tool for so often and told that it would help. Or
Great.
that it would stop it.
A lot of conversations to have.
Yes.
Jamani, good seeing you. Thank you for
You
being
too.
here.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Lincoln Ressler, are we in your district by any chance? Well, we're happy to be in the 33rd Council District.
Thank you, Chair Cesora and Reverend Daughtry and Mr. Bragg and all the members of the commission. It's good to see you, and Executive Director Savino. Our public advocate's a tough act to follow, but I'll try to engage briefly. The testimony I prepared tonight did not focus on public safety, but if I can offer any perspective as a city council member on those issues, happy to do so in Q&A. It's good to be with you all. Appreciate your dedication to our city. I do have to say, though, I am concerned about the extremely tight timeline of this commission. It inherently limits the ability for the public to effectively engage. The first meeting of the commission was on May 29th, just over 2 months, 68 days before the final ballot language must be submitted. This is only the 5th public hearing, with 6 more planned, far short of the 21 hearings that were held in 2019 or the 30 that were held in 1989. The initial round of meetings was also announced with very little notice or outreach, leading to limited attendance and participation in these sessions. New Yorkers, as we all know, are not shy about how this city should operate. So when there are fewer attendees than a community board meeting, we aren't reaching folks effectively. Given the incredibly short time frame that we're operating within, this commission should keep the scope of its inquiry narrow and should not propose sweeping changes to our charter. There simply is not sufficient time for the public to weigh in and for the voters to be able to make an informed choice, considering the very tight time frame with which we are operating. I was really pleased to hear, Chair Cesora, your remarks at the June 17th commission meeting that this commission is not planning to move backward on ranked choice voting. And I hope that the commission does not consider any changes to RCV. Ranked choice voting was an overwhelming success in the 2021 primaries. 90% of voters ranked multiple candidates, and surveys showed that 95% of voters found the ballot simple to complete. This resulted in the first female majority council, more women of color, including more women of color than ever before. 74% of voters supported ranked choice voting in 2019 when the last Charter Revision Commission put it on the ballot, and we've had only one major election since then. We need to give ranked choice voting more time before any changes are further considered. There are two modest but important changes that I believe the commission should consider in your work. First is an independent office to investigate sexual harassment. Recent reports have made clear that we need stronger, independent investigatory agencies to ensure all city employees are treated equitably. This commission should put forward a measure to create an independent office to investigate claims of harassment and discrimination against city employees. Every city employee deserves a workplace free of harassment and discrimination, but when these incidents occur, workers need to feel safe and confident that an independent investigation will take place. When the individual responsible for conducting the investigation is a direct appointee of the mayor, it can inherently limit the independence that is needed for that investigation to take place appropriately. The second issue I'd like to bring to your attention relates to lobbying. The commission should consider a measure to prevent elected officials and city agency heads from lobbying any city agency for 2 years after their term ends. Currently, elected officials and agency heads are only limited from lobbying the branch of government they served, leaving them free to lobby 90+% of city government the day after they take office, the day after they leave office. The 2019 Charter Revision Commission imposed this policy on a handful of agency commissioners, but there should not be a two-tiered system. And to give an example, when the outgoing chief of staff to the mayor left city service and began a lobbying firm, he was permitted to lobby every single agency in city government the day after he left city service. It just doesn't make sense. The rules need to be addressed. And it's totally inappropriate for a council member to leave office and the next day be able to lobby the mayor's office or any city agency. That should not be how our system works. We should not be trading in our influence and relationships that we build in public service to advance private or corporate interests upon leaving the public sector. And I'll just say lastly, I was troubled by Deputy Commissioner Barrow's testimony this evening. The City Council proudly holds open and inclusive hearings where members of the public testify and offer their input in person, virtually, or in writing. Council members engage our constituents every day from early in the morning until late at night, soliciting input on every single decision that we make. We are not nameless, faceless bureaucrats at city agencies. We are accessible to our constituents all day, every day. And I'm proud to be part of the most diverse council in New York City history. And I'm proud that we channel our diverse communities in our work at City Hall and in our decision-making. Lastly, I hope very much that the purpose of this Charter Revision Commission will not be to undermine the accountability of the NYPD, and that there will be a productive legacy for this commission beyond causing the unfortunate delay of the Speaker's important legislation to subject more mayoral appointments to advice and consent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I understand, council member, your 2-year ban. So are you saying that any elected official or commissioner should not be able to lobby anyone in city government for 2 years?
That's exactly right. And that's actually the policy in state government. So when a state commissioner leaves state government, they can't talk to anybody in state government for 2 years. We set up these very narrow limitations on how people can lobby. So the chief of staff to the mayor is allowed to lobby the HPD commissioner the day after he leaves city government. He may have been responsible for appointing that HPD commissioner. The HPD commissioner may have reported to him, and he's still allowed to lobby him the day after he leaves, or I'm allowed to go and lobby the mayor's office the day after I leave the city council. That's not how things should work. We should have a full 2-year ban for all of the most senior people in city government.
Got it. Thank you. Jackie Rowe Adams, I know you had a comment. Okay, maybe not. Yeah, please, Kyle.
It's good to see you, Councilman.
Always good to see you
Thank you
too.
again for your testimony.
Thank
I wanted to go back to the last point that you made about the council trying to limit the power of the mayor to make appointments to like commissions. I'm trying to understand what the rationale is behind that, because it's troubling me.
Well, I really appreciate you asking that question, and you know how much respect I have for you. In New York State, every single agency commissioner is subject to the advice and consent of the state Senate. Or if you go to Chicago or Los Angeles or Phoenix or Houston, the other largest cities in the country, the majority of mayoral appointments to key positions are subject to the advice and consent of their of their city council. In Washington, 1,200 of President Biden's appointments to his administration are subject to the advice and consent of the U.S. Senate. What we're talking about here is 20 individuals in key positions being subject to the advice and consent of the city council. And I think this is a really necessary idea because it would ensure that there's a proper vetting of the candidate before they're selected so we can review their ethical history, their experience, their competence. There's a public hearing where a candidate for a commissioner position has to answer questions, demonstrate that they're up for the job, and then there's a council vote, all within a 30-day timeframe. So it's a fast process, it's a swift and efficient process, and it's a way to ensure that people meet the ethical standards that New Yorkers deserve. We should have a parks commissioner and a sanitation commissioner or a DCAS commissioner who knows how their agency works, who is competent and experienced to do the job on day one. The city council can help provide that oversight to make sure that that's the case.
Thank you for your explanation.
And just for what it's worth, we've had advice and consent in New York City for about 50 years at different positions at different agencies. Various officials across a dozen city agencies are subject currently to the advice and consent of the council. The chair of the Taxi and Limousine Commission, all of the members of the City Planning Commission, except for the chair, are all subject to this process currently. And I don't see why we wouldn't want really important positions subject to that level of public scrutiny and oversight.
I guess I'll only ask again, do you think that process would only take 30 days to complete?
I think it's
Why do you believe
absolutely,
that?
I'm absolutely confident. The council has done it within 30 days. We can do it within 30 days. We'll need some additional capacity to vet folks properly, but to receive a candidate, to vet them, hold a hearing and vote, we can do that in 30 days and we will. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman.
Thank you so
very
much, Chair. Thank
Good
you to all
see
members of
you.
the commission. It's good to see you.
Thank you. And we've been joined by Reverend Daughtry. Commissioner, thank you for being here. Okay, our next panel will be Patrick Hendry, the president of the Police Benevolent Association, the PBA, Andrew Quinn from the Sergeant Benevolent Association, Correction Officers Benevolent Association, President Benny Bosio, and from Uniform Fire Officers Association, Michael Tracy and Chris Jensen. I'm not sure which of you two will speak, but please join us. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. Any order you like.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Patrick Hendry, President of the Police Benevolent Association. Thank you for holding these important hearings and considering my testimony on behalf of more than 21,000 active New York City police officers. As police officers, we recognize that our city's true public safety experts are the New Yorkers who live in the neighborhoods we protect. They are the ones who understand the safety conditions in the neighborhoods, and they know the community's needs and priorities. Unfortunately, the voices of everyday New Yorkers are too often drowned out during conversations about local public safety legislation. For this reason, we support the proposals you have already heard to increase public input in the legislative process. In particular, we support a charter revision to mandate that all legislation impacting public safety receives a public hearing in each of the 5 boroughs before consideration by the City Council. This would not only give New Yorkers an opportunity to be heard at a time and place that is convenient for them, it would help generate a true citywide public dialogue around public safety issues. In addition to this proposal, we believe the Commission has an opportunity to enhance public safety and address the NYPD's historic staffing crisis by strengthening due process protections for police officers at the Civilian Complaint Review Board, also known as CCRB. Charter Section 18-A established CCRB with a mandate to be fair and impartial and to conduct its investigations in a manner in which both the public and police officers have confidence. Mayor David Dinkins, upon establishing the current CCRB board, noted that doubts about CCRB's fairness and independence would only make police officers' difficult jobs even more difficult. Unfortunately, police officers unanimously believe CCRB has strayed very far from its mandate and making our jobs more difficult every single day. While several recent charter revisions have expanded CCRB's powers, there has been no corresponding effort to strengthen the agency's fairness or due process protections. Unfair treatment at CCRB is one of the major reasons that NYPD officers are leaving in record numbers, often to take policing jobs elsewhere. We have one simple common sense proposal that would help address this crisis. Amend the charter to require all unsubstantiated, unfounded, and exonerated complaints to be removed from police officers' records. Last year, 84% of the allegations investigated by CCRB, more than 10,000 allegations in total, were not substantiated. In more than half, CCRB found that the officer either did not commit the alleged act or acted properly within the NYPD guidelines. However, even these unsubstantiated allegations can negatively impact police officers' careers and follow them into retirement. Some other public employees already have the right to have false or unproven allegations removed from their records. Affording police officers the same rights is not only fair, it will help keep more of our finest on the streets at a time when we desperately need them. Thank you for your time. I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Do you want to jump in?
Yes, I'm Jim Brosey. I'm the president of Uniform Fire Officers Association. I do appreciate you having us here. And just to expand on what my colleagues spoke about public safety and the importance of getting feedback from both the public and the agencies as well, and the stakeholders. And to touch on what Jay Shelley had spoke about before about evolving the agencies and some of the legislations and the impact that that's having on staffing has been somewhat dire in the New York City Fire Department. Many of the administrative changes that are imposed upon the department force many of our line officers to come off and meet those staffing needs, especially when there are hiring freezes throughout the city. And so therefore, those remove line officers from the field without making any changes to OMB staffing. And so it's imperative that when we make these changes, that we involve the stakeholders in the process, especially when we're legislating them. Recently, we just had a law passed where legislative changes could have dramatically impacted safety. It was at the state level where they were attempting to impose a regulation where people who sold e-batteries for electric bikes and scooters would be forced to collect them and recycle them on behalf of the public so that they wouldn't be out in the public space. Unfortunately, nobody put any provision as to what type of buildings, what type of structure, whether or not somebody would regulate the people or the certificate of fitness or qualification of those people taking those back. That puts the agency at great risk, even though what they were proposing was noble. It was a first step on taking these very dangerous objects off the street, but without the input of stakeholders could have had dramatic consequences for the fire department as well as the people who live in and around those buildings. My last thing, as we hear proposals on the planning commission, I hear a lot of people speak about the importance of more housing, meeting the needs of people, and also upzoning many areas in order to meet the driving business needs of the city that has a very high tax base. And been doing so oftentimes in examples like Hudson Yards, police department, the fire department, EMS have been left out of that equation. There has been no provision for any fire service. There's been no provision for any additional areas that have been sectioned off for as that population either increase intensity, changes in land usage, especially in places as they're talking about Citi Field that only has 3 major arteries that access that particular part of Queens. And at the same time, the areas that surround it are already overburdened by nearly 6,000 and 7,000 runs annually. So we ask when planning proposes these ideas, they don't do it without the other stakeholders that must provide the public safety in those areas. When that thought process happens after the plans have been certified, after the area has been upzoned, there is very, very little room for the city to buy back that land to make adequate space for the number of people that we need in order to keep that area safe. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate all the work you're doing.
Good evening, Chairman Cesura and the distinguished members of this commission. My name is Benny Basio Jr. I am the president of the Correction Officers Benevolent Association, the second largest law enforcement union in the city of New York. Our members provide care, custody, and control of approximately 6,300 inmates daily. Today's hearing focuses on the proposed changes to the New York City Charter with the goal of formulating recommendations to enable the city's government to run more efficiently and better serve New Yorkers. As you are well aware, the Department of Correction has been grappling with unprecedented challenges over the last several years. Unlike many other first responders, we are out of sight and out of mind. But the fact of the matter is that no other workforce in the city has been subjected to the severe inhumane conditions that we have been subjected to, while simultaneously being scapegoated, criticized, second-guessed, and blamed for all the problems in our jails by some in the media and by many elected officials. Our workforce is 85% African-American and Hispanic. Nearly 50% of our workforce is comprised of female correction officers. Nearly 70% of our members live in the 5 boroughs of New York. We are your constituents, your neighbors, and your fellow taxpayers. We are also one of the largest stakeholders in the city's criminal justice system. Our essential workforce ensures that the inmates in our custody receive all the services and programming they are entitled to, in addition to escorting them to and from their court appearances and their medical appointments, all while maintaining their safety and security every day. Yet despite being one of the largest stakeholders in the criminal justice system, and despite the essential services we provide daily, our voices and our expertise are often excluded or marginalized whenever New York City Council drafts and passes legislation that impacts our members and their safety in particular. When legislation is written without our input or in secret, the implications of our workforce and the population under our custody are significant. Additionally, when legislation is drafted solely by those with a one-sided political ideology and without the input of correction policy experts, or without the expertise from the boots on the ground, it is inevitable that that legislation will only be counterproductive and in some instances actually compromise the safety and security of our jail facilities for everyone. In just the last few years, the council has passed numerous pieces of legislation driven by the political goals of various inmate advocacy groups and activists who know nothing about operating safe jails. The laws promulgated at their behest are not grounded in best correction practices as they relate to safety and security. They are not even grounded in reality. Take, for example, the City Council's legislation, Local Law 42, which was passed on December 20th, 2023, that effectively banned punitive segregation in our jails, making New York the first municipality in the entire country to pass such legislation. In addition, the law prohibits correction officers from placing inmates in handcuffs while transporting them to and from their court appearances on DOC buses. COBA was invited to testify only as part of the public portion of the first hearing on this legislation and excluded altogether when the legislation was reintroduced a year later. This legislation was the most significant policy change that directly impacted the safety and security of not only thousands of correction officers, but also the safety of thousands of inmates in our custody and the public safety as well. It is governmental malpractice to pass laws that literally jeopardize the lives of thousands of New Yorkers every single day, all because the council currently has no mandate to consult with or incorporate the input of jail management experts like COBA. Since the ban on punitive segregation was passed on December, violent offenders who comprise approximately 70% of our inmate population have already been emboldened to attack our members. For example, there have been approximately 260 assaults on staff, 61 spitting incidents, 170 splashing incidents, 9 sexual assaults on correction officers, 92 slashings, and 60 stabbing incidents since that legislation passed. The public advocate and the Speaker of the City Council justified the ban on punitive segregation as a necessary policy change to make our jails more humane. But those statistics clearly show that banning punitive segregation only jeopardizes our lives instead of protecting our lives and the lives of those in our custody. Furthermore, if violent offenders are able to ride in DOC buses without having their hands and feet restrained, those inmates could instantaneously assault and even kill the officer transporting them and then escape in any community in our city, threatening the lives of every New Yorker. It's well past for the time it's well past time for the City Council to be compelled to consult the public safety experts when drafting legislation that impacts public safety. Uniform unions like COBA should no longer be relegated to having 3 minutes to testify on consequential legislation that impacts the safety of our members and the safety of other New Yorkers during the public portion of City Council committee hearings. In fact, we should have our own dedicated panel and be part of the official hearing agenda. Further, the union leadership should be briefed on a regular basis by City Council members who are drafting legislation that impacts our safety and the public's safety. We strongly urge this commission to incorporate our recommendations from today's testimony into your final report to the mayor, so the public can have an opportunity to amend the city's charter to enhance not just the operations of the city's government, but to also enhance public safety of our city as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Andrew Quinn. I'm General Counsel to the New York City Sergeants Union. I appear on behalf of Vincent Valalong, who unfortunately for personal reasons could not be here. I will begin by incorporating all of the recommendations made by my esteemed colleagues, and rather than repeat them, ask you to consider them as though we made them as well. We agree wholeheartedly that there has to be public hearings before legislation involving public safety is enacted. There can be no public safety without a robust, high-functioning, and experienced police department. I presently represent 4,300 active and 13,000 retired sergeants. That 4,300 number is 700 below where we should be. There is an epidemic in national policing, and the epicenter of the problem is right here in the city of New York. And that problem is the inability to either hire officers, the application rate is dramatically low, or the ability to retain experienced police officers, experienced supervisors within the NYPD. And failure to hire qualified recruits, as you know, can have some obvious and drastic consequences. There's such a small number of people who want to become police officers, and there's a significantly smaller number of people we actually want to become police officers, given the challenges faced by police officers on a daily basis. The NYPD is at its lowest levels of staffing in over 3 decades. We are entering into a tricky season in the city where typically when the weather gets warmer, the crime rate ticks up. We need more, not less, street cops, and it appears at times that the city council is not only willing to accept the reduction in both the size and quality of its police departments, it seems to engineer it through the passage of legislation, which seems designed to destroy police morale, chase valued and experienced supervisors from the ranks, and encourage potential recruits to seek employment in other departments. Obvious examples are the diaphragm compression bill, which is a bill that 3 of the 5 sitting district attorneys said they will not prosecute for fear that it is unconstitutional. The How Many Stop Act, which takes valuable time from law enforcement and turns cops into bureaucrats, and City Code 8-810, which is the excessive force and strip search claims, which did away with qualified immunity. Now, all of these laws have the impact of affecting the morale of the existing police officers within the NYPD, as well as to deter other potential police officers from joining the ranks. As an aside, very quickly, the NYPD is the only police department in the nation where some sergeants earn less than police officers they supervise. And until we're willing to repair that anomaly and pay all sergeants what they should be paid, you'll continue to lose supervisors to other departments. Appearing at a funeral is not supporting the police. Police officers need legislative and vocal support of its elected leaders. You need to show support by passing legislation that supports law enforcement. The only way you can implement legislation fully and intelligently is to hear from the people in the field, from the officers, from the NYPD, from the unions. And before you pass legislation, you must have hearings. And that is what we strongly urge you to, when considering revisions to the city charter, keep in mind that we need public hearings on all legislation that involves law enforcement. Again, understanding how recruitment and retention are inexorably tied to reducing violent crime and to bonding with the community and to overall public safety is paramount. It's not simply a problem for law enforcement agencies. If we want our police department to be comprised of our best, brightest, and most dedicated and diverse people, which is exactly what we want, we have to see this problem for what it is, and we have to have the desire and determination to fix it. Any changes or revisions to the city charter must keep these concerns in mind. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Great, thank you very much. First of all, let me say thank you to all your members for their service. Clearly, we would not be a city without the folks that you represent, so thank you. I know we're running late on time, but this is an important panel, so I'm going to turn it over for questions. Yep, Kenny.
Again, echoing the chair, I just want to thank each and every one of you and the members of the unions that you guys represent. You guys are keeping the city safe, and we really, really appreciate that. My question is really for Patrick Henry. We talked about CCRB, and you talked about the unfounded and the unsubstantiated scarlet letters that remain on an officer's record. So we know that there's a lot of redundancies in investigating police misconduct. In particular, with CCRB, what would you ask the commission to do in correcting the unfounded, unsubstantiated, frivolous complaints against members of the police department?
They should be taken off a police officer's career immediately. There is no other career, profession that has a complaint on their record, not just for their career, but for the rest of their lives. No other profession has that. So if something's unsubstantiated, exonerated, it should come off a police officer's record immediately. And that's how we feel about it. There are other agencies that do that, expunge it right away, and that should happen immediately.
Thank you very much.
We're looking for fairness, and we have a system in CCRB that is not fair to police officers. We want fairness.
Thank you very much for your input and your testimony. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Reverend, it's good to see you.
Thank you, sir. I have a couple of questions. Number one, I think the astounding statistic you quoted, 84% of the charges are unfounded.
Yes, sir.
By who unfounded them? By what investigative agent, impartial investigative agency found that the charges were unsubstantiated?
So say that one more time. So what agency?
Yeah, what is the proof that 84% of the charges were unfounded? Who said that? Where can we find the statistic?
Well, that came from CCRB.
84% won.
84%, yes, sir.
Okay. Let me see. The second thing, Mr. Chairman, I think it is inaugural that we lived through a time during the 60s, 70s, 80s, and while you gentlemen, it's not quite as old as I, but you were around. And I think that those years were years in which there was justifiable resentment and in many instances hostility for police behavior. I sit here, while you're talking, I can think of the many people that were killed by the police. In a few weeks, a young man, Randy Evans, 15 years old, 1976, November, shot in the head for no reason at all. And inevitably, the killer cop, Robert Tosnick, was found not guilty. Arthur Miller choked to death June 14th, 1978. So we lived through those years, sir. What changes would you suggest or point out? What are the changes?
So what I brought up was,
Number one, do you believe that the police needed to change? There needed to be a change. And if so, what changes have been implemented by the officers in this present time?
so there are complaints made every single day against police officers that are, frivolous, that are unsubstantiated. And what we're looking for is those complaints to come off, that they're not proven to be substantiated. And we're looking for fairness for all, for everyone. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for fairness for everyone.
What changes, what are the changes in the police attitude, behavior now? What is the change from those years that I mentioned?
So police
Has there
officers
been
are
any
out there
changes?
every day. We're on camera. We do an incredible job, and that's what the CCRB there is there for. But they're there for fairness for both sides. Yes. Sure.
Reverend, I'll tell you the changes. First of all, when you were a young man, the New York City Police Department was almost an entirely white police department. That is no longer the case, and it's an extraordinarily diverse police department. Now, virtually every single encounter between a police officer and an individual is on body-worn camera. District attorneys no longer investigate the shootings that you just discussed. That's now the jurisdiction of the New York State Attorney General. And since the New York State Attorney General has been given jurisdiction to investigate police shootings, her results have been primarily exactly the same as they always have been historically, which is that police officers, almost in every instance where they shoot an individual, are acting within the bounds of the law, and they are justified. So there have been huge changes, and they all support what the officers have doing. Now, is anybody making an argument that police officers on occasion or sometimes do things that are wrong? No, it is a huge operation. But if you're asking institutionally, the changes that have been made, they've been made in terms of body-worn cameras. They've been made in terms of training. They've been made in terms of diversification. They've been made in terms of education. And there has been, as you know, a huge emphasis on community policing, which goes back to my earlier argument, which is why you need a fully funded and a fully robust police department if we're putting less cops on the street and asking those same cops to come back and do more and more tours of duty because they have to fill in overtime slots, because they don't have enough officers on the street. They need more officers to come in to police protests, for instance. They need more officers to come in and police parades, for instance. Then officers get tired, and tired officers are more prone to make a mistake than officers who are fully rested. There are studies on this. There are experience that tells us that we are now policing the city better than it's ever been policed. So in response to your question about what happened in the 70s, it's literally, it's a 50-year difference with all of the benefits of education, technology, and experience that you would expect the NYPD to have implemented.
Great. So I'm going to try and move on because we are really running
more question.
behind. If you can all be quick on your
Yeah,
question.
thank you so much for coming today and your testimony. It's not an easy job in NYPD and law enforcement. I needed you to, can you elaborate, give me a little more clear understanding about Law 42? And I think you had mentioned it.
Yes, it basically puts a ban on punitive segregation, which is what the public depicts as solitary confinement, but we don't have that.
And how
It's
do you-
basically if you commit a crime in jail, you are separated from general population and isolated so that you're not a threat anymore to other individuals that you're incarcerated with or to our officers.
And how would you see the charter supporting this?
Well, we believe if the charter can go to a referendum where the public gets to decide some of these things and that we are kept in the loop on these proposed legislation changes, it's very important because we are the boots on the ground. We know what works, what doesn't work. Not one city council member reached out calling me, asking how this change would affect my members. Not one. So that means we're not being consulted and laws are just being passed that put the public and our members at risk every day. Like, we need deterrence in place because we protect the city, but who's protecting us? These deterrents protect us and the other incarcerated individuals in jail.
Thank you.
So it sounds like the consultation and being part of the process is really critical to all of you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, Kyle, did you? No? Okay.
I would add that one important change that I've noticed with the NYPD is the change in leadership. We all know that, it starts from the top and trickles down of behavior and conduct, engagement with the public. And the fact that the leadership is way more diversified than when I was growing up adds to better engagement with the community. So I would just add that to your points that you were making, that and it does start from the top. And Benny, I also agree with you that the community should, and all of you, that the community plays a large role in this debate and conversation, discussion, discourse around policing. And so not to have community hearings, I think, is a grave error. And leaving you out of that factor and leaving the community out of that factor is a grave error. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to call 4 individuals at a time. We are going to be strict on the 3 minutes because we have a lot of speakers on Zoom also. Shout out to all my Zoomers. We will get to you in a few minutes. Robert Camacho, Jim Brasi, Haley Gorenberg, and Haley Nolasco. Robert Camacho,
That's me.
Jim Brasi. Is Jim Brasi here? No? Okay. Haley Gorenberg. Good to see you. Haley Nolasco. And Marisol Ducasal. I don't know if I have that right. Is there a Marisol here? Marisol Ducasel? No. Paulette Healy. Okay, come on up. I'm going to ask you all to begin.
Hi, my name is Robert Camacho. I am the chair of Community Board 4. I have been the chair for 6 years and 24 years as a board member. I have been through 4 borough presidents, Howell Golden, Marty Markowitz, Eric Adams, and now Antonio Reynoso. Yes, we are a city agency. Yes, we need help. Yes, we want to be at home. It's very hard for me to get a district manager that's young and wants to apply for a job to give a raise. We got to go through a lot of obstacles. OMB, you know yourself. Borough Hall, the budget, if there's any money. So it's really an impact on us. Another point that I hope that you guys echo what Antonio Reynoso says, and I thank him because he's the only borough president that I know that echoes for community boards to make sure that we held the city agencies accountable and also our elected officials accountable that we vote for. So they're right what these officers say. They don't come to the community and tell us when they're changing the law. Each community is different in its own way. So if you do hold hearings, we can work together to make sure that we put checks and balances on whatever they're going to propose and want. So they don't come to community boards and they make laws that's not what the community wants. And yet we put them in office. Think about that. That's something that I want you guys to think about. Also in regards to public safety, I ran for school board member in the 80s because I wanted to bring my kids in better. So my kids went to a public Catholic school because I sacrificed myself, and my kids graduate. One is an officer, which I hate very dearly her to be, because they don't have respect, born and raised in Bushwick. Another one, 36 years old, a correction officer, beaten. My son, 36 years old, beaten, lives in Bushwick in the hood. So you guys really need to address these issues and concern. I'm all about making sure there are checks and balance. You're right. And I remember when the police department weren't like me and you. But what we really need to do with the police department, let them do their job, work with the community. Create an environment where it's all right to see a Latino and Black talk, or with a white guy and talk, and make sure that together we can make. But we have a lot of negativity that's going on, and the people and the powers that we put in office to represent us aren't representing us. So we really need to force them to come, and you really need to put it on the books that they need to come to the community board. They really need to come and tell us what laws are they making, how they changing, and how they're going to make to help us. Because our youth, back in the days, I used to run from the police. They turn around and they challenge you. So
Thank you. Thank you. Do you want to go? Sure. You might have heard that little buzzer go off, by the way. That's all right. Yeah, you can go. Whenever you're done, if you want to go, you can. Nope. By the way, I should say I'm a big fan of community boards, just so you know. I served on one for many years. It's okay. You're going to get a big pension, lots of zeros on it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Haley Nolasco, and I'm the Director of Government Relations at the Center for Justice Innovation, a nonprofit that works with communities and systems to advance equity and cultivate lasting forms of safety. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here today. The Center for Justice Innovation provides community-based programming that improves public safety and connects New Yorkers to crucial services such as mental health, substance abuse, counseling, and anti-gun violence programming. In addition, we offer meaningful off-ramps to the criminal legal system that serve to reduce recidivism and change lives. When it comes to public safety, the words of those often most affected by systemic harm are typically left out or do not have meaningful access to or awareness of the legislative process. Through our work, we often hear from a lot of the individuals that we serve that they would like to be more involved in local government and have a say in how they can actually advance public safety in their communities. We ask that the Charter Revision Committee consider amendments that will help to enhance the public's involvement in the city's legislative process to help make their community safer. At times, legislation, albeit well-intended, can have unintended consequences, whether it's in practice or in cost that can often, many of the folks on the ground may anticipate or feel. Bringing an array of voices into the conversation can help create more intentional and thoughtful city legislative agenda. One such option could be to include community boards in the legislative conversations to help community be more aware of legislation being introduced, and that could vastly increase residents' opportunities for civic engagement, giving them a true platform. Nonprofits like ours can also play a role in increasing access to learning about and understanding legislation. We have an established relationship with the community and an amazing team of in-house researchers that can also help to evaluate potential policy changes and work as conduits to help spread information and educate community members on legislation. It's all about giving access. Amendments that will increase civic engagement should be prioritized, particularly when it comes to conversations around keeping their community safe. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the core governing document for the city, guiding finance, capital projects, and parks, my case in point for today's public comment. I'm Haley Wernberg, and I lead Friends of Mount Prospect Park. Thousands of community members have responded to the city's shocking plan to fast-track paving a 40,000 square foot regional scale skate complex onto vital local green park space. This plan flagrantly contradicts our officials' frequent green, climate, resiliency-oriented proclamations. that we are fighting raw power in an uphill battle against pouring a mostly concrete sports complex on neighborhood green space, even as the area is full of already paved spaces, including substandard skate spaces, shows that New Yorkers need an overarching charter mandate, a core enacted commitment in city governance to actually, dare I say concretely, preserve and ideally expand urban green space. We need a charter that mandates a green climate resiliency screen for decision-making, for the good of the entire public, for all our children, for elderly people, for people with disabilities, for people in environmental justice communities. It is truly scientifically, factually, unavoidably existential, and it is a matter of bedrock public safety. We see awareness of our climate-related well-being siloed in agencies under a slew of laws, rules, policies, surveys, as well as reports on the laws, rules, policies, and surveys. Nevertheless, our officials are pushing to pave our green park over all these provisions and widespread vehement objection. We've been told it's a done deal and we should shut up, and it was expected our neighborhood would be easy to roll. We're called antagonistic, racist, and rude if we question paving green space used every day by a diverse swath of Brooklyn, diverse by race, age, ability, and many other axes of the mosaic of Brooklyn. Daycares and camps use Mount Prospect Park because they need the green space for children. Elderly people and people with physical disabilities and with sensitivities to stimuli use it as a relatively manageable green space in contrast to the high-speed loop of dynamic Prospect Park. Anyone and everyone can currently use the green park space flexibly and for free, in contrast to having it paved for a narrow use that requires purchasing specialized equipment. Increasingly common storms, cloudburst events, and even just rain overwhelm our drainage and sewage systems, causing flooding and contamination. The area floods spectacularly, and paving makes that worse. The library next door has a cooling center because of killer heat that's getting worse. The raw heat is aggravated by paved heat islands. We've just gone through the hottest May on record after the hottest year on record, and the heat's projected to get worse. New York City has been reclassified. We are now living in a humid subtropical climate zone. So if in 2024, our officials tell Brooklynites to shut up and take it while our critical green space is paved, we want a charter revision that serves all of us and all our families by making climate, resiliency, and green a governing mandate and part of our lived reality, not just when our officials feel like posting for Earth Day on Instagram. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I heard Mount Prospect Park.
Mount Prospect
Where is
Park.
that?
It's across Flatbush. It's an encapsulated smaller park, and it used to be a reservoir and fairly historic. It's right on Eastern Parkway
Got it.
where Underhill.
I know where it
does
is.
into
Thank you. I just want to make sure. Ma'am, you're up. We're going to have after these speaker, Dr. Kim Best and Sharani Perry, so you can be ready.
My name is Paula Healy, and I'm a disability advocate, a proud immigrant, and a long life resident of Brooklyn. I am a mother raising 2 children with disabilities in New York City public schools, and I'm here to ask this commission to consider creating a commission on disability. The Office for People with Disabilities at the state level and the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities are understaffed and cannot support the immense need of our disability community. Also, the MOPD does not have the authority or oversight to go after vendors tasked to provide crucial services, whether that's assessor ride, housing discrimination, yellow bus service for our students with disabilities, or deficits in nursing care. The DOE spends $2.2 billion on car cases alone, simply because our public school system continues to fail to support our students with disabilities and are happy to pass the responsibility on to somebody else. Without the attention, the richest city in the world has accessibility problems when it comes to our transportation system. And out of 1,600 schools, less than 200 are fully ADA compliant. Think about those barriers that causes. So when it comes, and I know this is a safety meeting, so when it comes to safety, people with disabilities are 10 times more likely to be shot and killed than a neurotypical individual, as we have seen time and time again in the news. We know after asking multiple members of NYPD that de-escalation is only a class at the academy, and there's no real refresher once they are active in the force, and real no training when it comes to identifying people with disabilities and how to de-escalate. The mayor of Phoenix, Arizona created a mayoral commission for disabilities needs in 2010. By 2016, Phoenix was designated an autism-friendly city.
which includes training for all first responders to be trained on de-escalation when it comes to people with disabilities, as well as sensory-friendly spaces designated to support people with disabilities. What our city pays attention to says a lot about what is important. Based on that metrics, our disability community isn't even on the radar. During the heat wave, reports of hot buses were nonstop. Think about sitting on a hot public transportation bus just for 15 minutes. Our children travel 2 hours sweating in a hot box in 90-degree weather. That is unacceptable. We wouldn't treat animals that way. Why should we treat children? We need a commission that can work intergovernmentally to support the districts, to support the distinct needs of people with disabilities. And with the rate of 25% of people identifying as being disabled across the nation, that person that you are helping by creating this commission could be someone you love. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Kim Best and Sharani Perry. And we're gonna call the Zoom speakers as soon as these two ladies are done.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Dr. Kim Best, and I wear several hats. I happen to be a precinct council president for 36 years. So I constantly work with the community and with different entities. I'm also a community board member that represents the senior community and served 10 years with the public safety. I am in agreement with the commission for the improvements for the community. One thing I would just like to add is that we, the village, because we are the village, we need to be more in the conversations. Because whatever's happening on the streets, we get it first. We know about the gangbangers, we know about the people getting shot, we know everything that goes on. And a lot of times we're kept out of the trickle. So I don't want to be long-winded this evening because I've been out here 54 years. I've heard all the testimonies. I'm in agreement with most of them. But the reality is knowing the neighborhood that you're serving, knowing to be very transparent, and knowing to be involved in the conversations. Because that's what we need. That's how we're going to solve whatever it is. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very
Short and
much.
sweet, right?
I love short and sweet. All right. I do too, actually.
Good afternoon. My name is Minister Dr. Sharani Perry. I've been a community advocate. I'll be celebrating 55 years on Sunday as a community advocate. I'll be celebrating 70 years of life. I'll be celebrating 2 years cancer-free on Sunday. I started with Reverend Daughtry.
That's the best one of all of them.
I started with Reverend Daughtry when I was 15, and I'll be 70 on Sunday. So we have a long history together. And you know, at this point, because I was sitting back there, everything to me began to sound like yada, yada, yada. I mean, I have to be honest about that because all of y'all kind of took a drop after all of the officials left. And I'm going to be honest, from back there, it looked like all of y'all went somewhere else because y'all just heard the same thing. It was redundant. This is what I have to say. The end to crime in our communities is economics. Economics will solve a lot of the disparities that we have in our community. If our young people have nowhere to go and they have idle minds, that's the devil's playground. So if they don't have anything to do, there's not enough after school programs, there's not enough summer programs, monies is being cut because of all the different situations that happened throughout the last couple of years of this administration, whether it was the migration, the immigration situation, or whatever it might have been, monies had to be pulled from other agencies. I'm commending the mayor on something that he's getting ready to do, well, which he started, right, Kim?
Yes.
Because we're a part of it. It's called C3, and it's a clergy collective. And what they're going to be doing is they have identified in each borough 5 precincts with the highest number of crimes. It's coming through DYCD and the Mayor's Faith-Based Initiative Office. And we have been charged to do as clergy is to work with the community, NYPD, and the young people in the community. So every Thursday morning and every Sunday, my area, I'm from Bed-Stuy, but I'm doing some work up in Harlem right now, is Polo Grounds, which has the highest number of crime as far as shooting and things are concerned. Wrangle Houses, which is right across the walk from there, and Ruckus Park, which is right across the street. So every Thursday morning at 6 o'clock, every Sunday morning at 6 o'clock, we walk those grounds. We walk them in the evenings and we talk to the young people. We pray as we walk, we pray for them and we pray with them. And the only thing they keep saying is, we don't have any jobs. We need jobs. We don't have nothing to do, you know? So I truly believe the whole situation that we're dealing with about crime and stuff in our communities, if we had economics to replace some of the things that's going on in the communities, then we would have less gun shootings. That's why I'm a fan of the buyback of the guns and everything else. So if you want to take some back to the governor and the mayor, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Very much, ladies. John Riccatone. Oh, sorry, Kyle, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with both testimonies just now. I think we talk about policing and we talk about all the resources that we put in to keeping our community safe, but we don't talk enough about the economic and social disparities that exist that create these circumstances. And I think that she's spot on when she talks about we need to build viable training programs and things that give young folks opportunities so that keeps them off the streets, keeps them out of trouble. And so you are spot on about that. And I thank you for the work that you do. I'm trying to do some of the same work in Southeast Queens. So thank you.
Thank you. John Riccatone?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. I am John Riccatone. I'm the first vice president of the Community Education Council of District 20 in Brooklyn. Nowadays, children are being killed by other children, and children are being stabbed in their schools, which is supposed to be a safe haven. Also, shootings and stabbings and murder is on a rise between women and men. Also, it's happening more so in daylight and areas that are busy. The city council needs to not write resolutions for Jay-Z, a rapper that stabbed a person and sold drugs to make his birthday a holiday. But they need to make resolutions for safety, help out with the assistance of safety for the children and families. Time and time again, violent felons are arrested because the officers do a hell of a job. But with the demonic bail reform in place, they are out the next day just to do it again. New York City is a free-for-all. People commit robbery after robbery until someone is murdered, and then they'll be in jail. Young children and adults are being stabbed and shot citywide. The police are doing an excellent job. It begins from home. Parents also need to be held accountable for their child. Democratic bail reform and COVID caused violent felons to be released from Rikers Island just to commit crimes, more crimes, whether violent or non-violent, just to do it again. Also, the unlawful COVID vaccine mandates made thousands of officers leave the force to go to another state to work when they put in their time. July of 2025, over 1,700 officers are eligible to retire at an already short-staffed NYPD. Officers are leaving the department for other departments at a fast pace. Officers are tired, detail after detail, sometimes 15 hours at a time, just to go back to work to do your next tour. Some precincts have 5 cars, which is 10 officers. That goes down to 4 cars, which is 8 officers. A rest comes over, it goes down to 3 cars, 6 officers. Then an EDP job comes over and they have to transport to the hospital. It goes down to 2 cars with 4 officers. And they still have to answer 911 calls, 311 calls, and they're short-staffed, which leaves the officers and the community unsafe. Each elected official should be required and mandated to do a ride-along. The city council are not law experts, but vote on laws which cause many people to die and receive serious physical injury due to bail reform when the purpose is to stay in jail due to the crime they committed and their arrest record. We need to make sure that each high school and junior high school has metal detectors so that the children are safe due to so many serious physical injury and physical injuries with knives and weapons and recoveries. Jermaine Williams, dreaming is not reality. Too many electeds, such as Jermaine Williams, has an agenda. He doesn't want to have metal detectors, so it should be written that if any child goes to school and a serious physical injury happens inside the school, they should be able to sue him and any elected official that feels the need that a metal detector shouldn't be involved in the school. Many parents want metal detectors. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And by the way, I served as CEC District 20 president for many years, so I've been around District 20 for a while. Amory Dujardin, and forgive me if I said that wrong.
No, you surprisingly got my first name correct, Amory. Nice to see you again, Chair. Members of the 2024 Charter Revision Commission, my name is Amory Dujardin, and I'm the Policy Manager at Citizens Union. Thank you for providing us with the opportunity to speak before you today. CU has been studying police accountability and performance in New York City for more than a decade, and many of our recommendations have been implemented. We believe the best way to ensure the safe and democratic application of policing is to strengthen and streamline systems of oversight and accountability, both within the NYPD and among the independent entities that monitor police misconduct. Public safety is dependent on New Yorkers having faith in law enforcement. As we noted in our testimony during the June 17th hearing, we believe the 2-month timeframe under which the 2024 Charter Revision Commission is operating is insufficient to thoroughly review the charter, seek meaningful public input, and draft well-crafted amendments to the charter. We therefore ask the commissioners either to work past the November 2024 ballot question deadline and put a question on the 2025 ballot, or to place a question on the November 2024 deadline that is narrow in scope. We include CU's recommendations on the topic of public safety, but reiterate our position that the commission should avoid any major changes to the city charter due to the limited time available to meaningfully engage with issues. In the area of policing, as in other areas, the role of the city council is to enact laws, approve a budget, and conduct oversight through committee hearings. The council does not currently play any role in the appointment of police commissioner, or for that matter, in the appointment of any commissioner with the exception of the commissioner of investigation and corporation counsel. Because of the importance of the police commissioner and the impact of the NYPD on the daily lives of the city's residents, Citizens Union had previously recommended that the appointment of the police commissioner be made subject to the advice and consent of the council, and we repeat this recommendation here. To note, CU has recently testified before the City Council asking them not to move forward with the proposed expansion of advice and consent before the body gives more time for committee meetings, public hearings, and further debate to fully consider the implications of that proposal. Second, according to media reports, the commission is considering whether a lengthy public review process should be mandated for changes to local public safety laws, similar to the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure, ULURP, mandated under Charter Section 197C for various land use changes. Citizens Union opposes this proposal. The ULURP process was introduced by the 1975 CRC to provide communities with the opportunity to comment on certain applications for real estate development and other land use changes that occur near them. ULURP is a geographically based process where, in most cases, community boards and community members react to proposals within their district. It was enacted in response to decades of government centralization in development and infrastructure decision-making. On the contrary, legislation related to public safety is a citywide policy matter. Like many other general matters of citywide importance, such as education, transportation, or the environment, they are regulated by the legislative branch, which represents the city's various districts by passing general local laws.
I'm going to ask you to wrap up if you can.
Absolutely. So in addition, we believe a proposal to add a requirement for a public review process on public safety laws could spur ongoing legislation on the question of what qualifies as public safety, further complicating the legislative act. Thank you for your time and wish you the best.
Thank you very much. Natasha Duncan.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Natasha Duncan, as you just said. I am from East Flatbush, Brooklyn. I'm also a New York City public school teacher. I'm testifying today as someone who has been active in New York City for years. I'm concerned about the rush and irresponsible nature of this charter revision process. I aim to combat misinformation related to this commission. Commission stated public safety goals. Compressing hearings into a 2-month period with no real advance notice about the charter revision process is not responsible governance, especially when we are discussing changes to the city's constitution. On June 14th, 2012, my younger sister, Chantel Davis, was involved in a car accident. Detective Philip Atkins, in plain clothes and driving an unmarked vehicle, jumped out of the vehicle with his gun drawn and shot my sister, Chantel, in the chest at close range, later calling it an accident. My sister was 23 and unarmed. Despite being named in several lawsuits and known in the community as Bad Boy Atkins for his abuse and violence, the NYPD never disciplined him. After he murdered my sister, they continued to shield him from accountability. It's been 12 years. The city has paid out at least 5 lawsuits for Detective Atkins, costing taxpayers over $100,000. Yet neither he nor the NYPD has taken steps to prevent violent policing by officers like him. We all deserve to live in safe, healthy, thriving communities. Since my sister's death, I have been working to empower youth in East Flatbush and improve my neighborhood better than the one Chantel knew. I have actively led efforts to police accountability, helping to pass city and state legislation. Given the limited information shared about this commission and the mayor and NYPD's history of not firing officers who kill, brutalize, and sexually assault New Yorkers, I'm concerned that this commission may hinder police accountability instead of enhancing it. The safest communities are those with resources to support people, not those with the most police. Tens of thousands of Black girls and boys need access to social workers, health and mental health care, educational support, and employment opportunities. They need the possibility of thriving, not the problems of being criminalized and policed in their schools and neighborhoods. Safety must include addressing police violence. No one knows this better than families like mine. Allowing the NYPD to go unchecked with officers like Detective Atkins facing no accountability does not make anyone safer. The NYPD already has outsized power in the city and regularly overspends its massive budget, overspending about $8 million in fiscal year 23 alone.
Thank you very much.
Is my time?
Shoot.
Hi there, good evening. Good evening, Chair and members of the Charter
Good evening.
Commission. My name is Yatin Chu. I'm a Queens resident, public school parent, and president of Asian Wave Alliance. Thank you for the opportunity to give testimony regarding public safety in New York City. It is appalling that the City Council overrode the mayor's veto on the How Many Stops bill. The package of criminal justice bills were unpopular with New Yorkers, and that was why the mayor vetoed them. With heightened concerns on crime and the need for our police to devote more resources, it was wrong for Speaker Adams to whip the council to override the veto. She herself was elected by fewer than 7,000 voters in her district, just 1% of registered Democrats, and yet she and public advocate Jumaane Williams bullied the council into submitting to their dangerous agenda. I urge the Charter Commission to put in the charter that only the mayor with his police commissioner should dictate police policies and to abolish the public advocate position. He does not speak for me. As a public school mom, the safety of our students in and around schools are top priorities for me. Since the pandemic, bullying and assaults have become more prevalent, even gunshots around school grounds. We should hire and fund more school safety agents and allocate more police patrols in school corridors where students commute to school. The refunding of police and school safety agents should be voted on by New Yorkers. Lastly, with the capture of the illegal immigrant who raped the 13-year-old in Consina Park fresh on everyone's minds, we must end Sanctuary City. With nearly 200,000 unvetted migrants on our streets, local law enforcement must be able to refer illegal immigrants committing violent crimes for deportation. The Siena poll released today showed that 83% of New Yorkers think migrants are a serious problem. Let's put ending Sanctuary City status for a referendum vote. Let New York City Vote to end the insanity. Thank you.
Thank you. Amit Pratap.
Yes, I'm here. Let me turn on my video.
Do you have testimony to present?
Yes.
Okay.
Namaste, and my name is Amit Pratap Shah. I'm the founder and president of the Mithila Center USA, located in the Queens, and also I'm the community board member 6. But I'm here to testify as a parent of the 2 kids who go to the public school in New York, right here in Queens. And I thank you for this the opportunity to speak today in support of the Intro 586A, the Public Safety Legislation Charter Revision Recommendation. This important legislation proposes to extend the time allowed for the public testimony before the City Council votes on the measures that impact public safety for all the New Yorkers. As someone deeply committed to the safety and well-being of our city, I believe that the cornerstone of the effective public safety policy is through and inclusive deliberation. Public safety legislation has profound implication for the every residence, and it is essential that we take necessary time to hear from all stakeholders. Intro 586A seeks to ensure that there is an ample opportunity for the public testimony. This is not merely a procedural adjustment. It is a commitment to transparency, accountability, and community engagement. By allowing more time for the testimony, we can gather a broader range of the perspective, better understand the potential impacts of the proposal legislation, and make more informed decisions. The voice of the community members, advocacy groups, and public safety professionals are invaluable in shaping policies that truly reflect the needs and concern of our diverse population. When we rush the legislative process, we risk overlooking critical insights and unintended consequences that could underdetermine the very safety we seek to enhance. Extending the time frame for the public testimony will help build trust between the government and community. It demonstrates that we value and respect the input of our constituents and that we are dedicated to crafting policies that serve the best interest of all New Yorkers. Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you very much. Vishnu Mahadeo. Do we have Vishnu Mahadeo? Not there anymore. Okay. Jean H.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jean Hahn, and I'm a resident of Queens. I'll keep this short and brief. I have 4 issues I'd like to raise. The first one is I'm a parent, public school parent. I live in a district where we have a very high Jewish population. And while I myself am not Jewish, parents are terrified. And they reach out to me because I'm a leader in my public school. They're terrified with what they're seeing with protests, etc. And with regards to accountability, because these individuals that are committing crimes, vandalizing, are getting away with things because they're still masking. So I would like to raise the point about bringing back the masking ban to a referendum for public gatherings if City Council fails to pass any legislation. It was understandable during the height of COVID, but nowadays very few are actually masking on their own. So individual choice, of course, should be respected, but we need to have the law revert back to what it used to be prior to COVID. protesters and criminals are using this as a way to basically shield their identity and to commit heinous acts of hate crimes, etc., and actual crimes. And it's also terrifying just walking down the street, being approached by a group of people that are entirely masked. It's terrifying. Second point is I'd like to raise a referendum to get rid of New York City sanctuary city status. We have illegal immigrants who are engaged in criminal activity that are being shielded by this and taking advantage of this. It needs to end. We don't have the funding to cover the cost of all the migrants. I ask that this be put to a referendum and to a vote. I don't think that many people are in favor of this anymore, not that they understand the implications. So the third one is, the third and fourth are related. I'm actually very furious with how the How Many Stops Act was passed. I listened to that hearing, and when the council members voted, very few of them, very few actually cited statistics, data, best practice, and instead it was more of an emotional position that they were taking their decisions on. That is not how public safety should ever be implemented. It needs to be, and it can't be done block by block, right? Especially when you're talking about the NYPD and the agency, which has to have one set of rules for everyone. So, in taking that into consideration, my fourth point, I want to reiterate what someone earlier had said about abolishing the office of the public advocate. The current public advocate is basing his advocacy on ideology.
Thank you.
He does not speak for all constituents. I'm sorry, but he did this as well through COVID. He's not speaking for constituents that have been calling his office. He's basically running on his own. It's redundant. Why are we spending the money on this? Abolish the office of the public advocate. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Sammy Feliz.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sammy Feliz. I was born and raised in Washington Heights area in Manhattan. Still currently live there. And from this same community as well was my brother, who was murdered by NYPD 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago now. I just found out about this commission, and I'm here to testify because I'm concerned on the stated focus on public safety. But this is it feels like such a rushed process and kind of badly organized, which might result in dangerous and also harmful items being on the November ballot. On October 17th of 2019, my brother Alan was unjustly stopped. He was in his car, beaten, tasered, then shot and killed by NYPD Lieutenant Jonathan Rivera and officers Michelle Amenzar and Edward Barrett in the Bronx. After Lieutenant Rivera shot Allen, Officer Barrett yanked his limp body out of the car, exposing his genitals in the process. None of the officers had the decency to cover Allen up. Instead, they left him bleeding in the street, cuffed and exposed. The Civilian Complaint Review Board substantiated fileable charges against Lieutenant Rivera over a year ago, and as of right now, a discipline trial still has not been scheduled. My family and I have been fighting through 4.5 years of delays and obstructions by the NYPD and Lieutenants Union and the administration just to try to get Lieutenant Rivera fired for murdering my brother in cold blood. The whole time, Lieutenant Rivera has been collecting a city paycheck and padding his pension. I'm testifying today because I'm shocked at how this so-called charter revision process is going so far. This has all happened so fast and barely anyone knows about these hearings. The fact that the mayor specifically wants the commission to focus on how public safety legislation is passed is extremely suspicious, especially after the massive misinformation campaign the mayor and the NYPD ran to try to stop the How Many Stops Act from becoming law. The administration's obstruction on implementing the banned solitary law and the fact that we can get any information on whether administration is implementing on How Many Stops Act law, it's hard to is hard to understand, and this is another thing, yet another maneuver by the mayor to increase power of the NYPD policy and punishing our city, while advancing budget cuts to make our city less safe by cutting libraries, not funding affordable housing, enacting rent increases, and continuing to make it near impossible to fire officers who kill, brutalize, sexually harass, and abuse New Yorkers. For those of us fighting for the change to make our community safer, this is kind of an anti-democratic process, leaving us with little or no hope that our voices will be heard. When we will take a step forward, like a basic step of getting real transparency about the NYPD street stops, this mayor wants to take us 3 steps back. And it doesn't really make sense. Black and Latino New Yorkers like me who get stopped by NYPD all the time had to fight tooth and nail to get the How Many Stops Act passed. Getting any kind of police reform legislation passed in this city is almost impossible because the NYPD, the police union, and this mayor have no problem with lying, threatening, and bribing to stop it. Under Mayor Adams, fatal shootings by NYPD are the highest they've been in a decade.
Thank you.
Complaints
Thank you,
against
sir.
police are up.
Maria Danzillo.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, members of the Charter Revision Commission. Maria Danzel. I'm Executive Director of the political advocacy group, One City Rising, whose mission includes supporting good governance, transparency, accountability, and checks and balances to ensure all our government institutions are working properly and for the people, consistent with our state and federal constitutions. Can I just ask if the audio is working? Sometimes people complain. Hopefully you can hear me.
We hear you.
Okay, thank you. One of the areas where the lack of good governance and oversight has been very damaging to the interests of New Yorkers is in our community board system. I am here tonight to advocate that this committee take up a revision of our community board selection system to more appropriately reflect the community's best interests in all areas of city life. I understand tonight's meeting is focused on public safety, so I will address my comments in this limited time to this particular issue. I reside in Community Board 7 on the Upper West Side, which covers much of Council District 6. For years, I was a regular attendee at community board meetings, and I've occasionally offered testimony on an issue that I was concerned about, but mostly listening. In 2020 and 2021, as crime rates began to spike, many community board members attempted to bring to the attention of Community Board 7 concerns about public safety, but we were routinely dismissed as crime is not real and what we're seeing is not really happening. And we all felt very much gaslighted, which of course gave rise to the organization of this group, One City Rising. Key members of this Community Board 7 in particular have been on the board for decades. And at least one of them told me that he was initially put on the board simply to fulfill the requests of the council member and the borough president, and to make sure that there wasn't much community opposition. So this is not how democracy should be working. The process for selecting members is not transparent. And in fact, the people who are appointed to these boards are usually from the prominent political clubs or represent special interests or lobbyists. By the way, I just want to say, I don't think that's true for all community boards. I'm sure many of them have excellent people. I'm just speaking about my experience with Community Board 7. While the boards do have to comply with city conflict of interest policies, in practice, each board has its own set of rules, and any attempt to tighten these rules to limit the influence of special interests has been shut down. You can see what happened on Community Board 7 on YouTube. I was at those meetings. I witnessed it firsthand, where people who had conflicts of interest were voting on whether to revise the conflicts of interest policy. I'm a lawyer. I worked in conflicts of interest and ethics. You don't have the people who have conflicts writing the policies. That's not how it should be done as a charter revision. Not all community boards have public safety.
I'm going to ask you to please wrap up.
Of course. Not all community boards have public safety committees. CB7 did not have one until I suggested it. It didn't last very long. So we need uniform rules for qualifications to serve on the board. We need to make sure they're transparent. We need term limits that actually work. People are on the boards for decades. We also need a uniform process for allowing community board members, non-appointed community members, to sit on committees. Some community boards allow it, others do not. We also need a process to make sure there's viewpoint diversity. I personally favor electing community board members with some restrictions on how much money can be spent.
Thank you very much. If you can, maybe just send us an email with your recommendations for the community boards. Thank you. Donggoy Zhang, I hope I said that right.
Hi, I'm Donghui. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Chair. Okay. Hi. My name is Donghui Zhang. I'm a Queens resident for 20 years, 25 years, and I raised my two children in public schools of New York City, and I was a former city council candidate in 2021 for District 29. So I want to speak first that I want the charter to consider repealing of the Harmony Act stop. So that's just absurd. So when I first moved to New York City 20 years ago in 2003, I started in Forest Hills. I still live here because this was the safest place at Queens, probably also one of the most safest at New York City. But now it's not anymore. The women and girls, they were afraid in the night and they don't want to take subway home, even in the Forest Hills station after 8 p.m. So because we all know, so what kind of all the horrible things and people in the subway and in the station in the night. It was not like this before. It was not like this when I first came to New York. So from this perspective, I strongly oppose that the Harmony Stops Act, which put the most precious NYPD resources on paperwork and put intangible pressure on the officers for them to use their discretion to recognize potential crimes and stop them. So please repeal them. And secondly, so I echo with many speakers who spoke before. I think we should consider ending the sanctuary city status. I came to here in a student visa, and then later on, I got my green card. I got my naturalization through lawyer. Through many paperwork. Every step I did, I was proud of myself, and I'm grateful to the opportunities this country gave to me. But now I was frustrated by the sanctuary city status when I even first heard of this name, this terminology many years ago. Why? Some people can just come here free and, money over us, spend big effort, we come here, invest big money and time on that. Well, it's understandable, for all the humanity considerations, but I just don't understand why even the law stop the police officer, stop the law enforcement to send the crime committed undocumented migrants to be deported. So that was totally wrong, and that has to be ended. And the last, so I want the city council, I want the charter to consider, not consider, I demand, please end the community jail process. So it was totally absurd. It wouldn't solve any problem, but it will bring you many more new problems. It will spend like tens of billions of dollars, and it will put great danger threat to the community, and it will drive the tourists away. And then it will. Thank you.
Thank you. Mona Davis.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm trying to turn my camera on. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to be quick because I know there are a lot of other New Yorkers on here waiting to testify. So my first point is with regards to the How Many Stops Act passed by the City Council in December 2023. The position of the School Safety Coalition that I represent, and my position as a mother of a 16-year-old young Black man, is that only the mayor and the police commissioner should be the ones to develop police procedures, dictate police policy, not the city council. And we would like this put into the charter. We need to have it in the charter that the responsibility when it comes to keeping our city safe, keeping New York City citizens safe, our families, our communities, that must be decided upon. Procedures must be developed by whoever the mayor is and whoever his police commissioner is. City council members are not law enforcement experts. And the fact that the city council is endangering our families by drowning our police officers in unnecessary paperwork, and will then complain about overtime, it just doesn't make any sense. And we are talking about city council members who were voted in by less than 5% of the voters in their district. So they clearly do not speak for the best interests of us and of our communities. The city council, the current cohort, as well as the previous cohort under Mayor de Blasio, they have always been vocal in their agenda to defund the police. Some city council members have called for abolishment of the police department, while our children are being killed, shot, stabbed, raped, and robbed. The city council holds hearings to defund the NYPD, but they do not hold hearings when our children are being killed. They're not present when mothers bury their children. They're not present at court hearings when families are fighting for justice, but you know who are at these court hearings with the mothers who've lost their children to gun violence in the city are police officers. I've attended a number of court hearings with mothers who have lost their children, and the police officers are there providing support. Never, ever has a city council member been at any of those court hearings. Our position when it comes to the How Many Stops Act, as well as advice and consent, is that we elected the mayor. The mayor was elected by voters in the city. And when it comes to Mayor Eric Adams, we voted for him because he is the public safety mayor, and that's what was the priority for New Yorkers, and that's why he won the election. So while the city council is
I'm going to ask you to wrap up.
Yes, I'm going to wrap up. While the city council is busy passing these laws that are endangering our communities since December 2023, and I'm going to be very quickly, when it comes to our young people, our youth, ages 21 and under, there have been 122 shootings. We've had 14 fatalities. We've had 369 young people stabbed and slashed. We've had 617 youth with gun arrests, gun possession inside our schools, outside of our schools. So this is a crisis. And the city council should not be allowed to push their ideological agendas on our communities.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Raul Rivera and Christopher Johnson, while you guys are settling in, I'm going to call one more Zoom, Minister Renee Strada. Minister Strada?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just give me 1 second. I'm getting ready. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for having me speak. My name is Irene Estrada. I am a former member of Community Board 11. I have been an activist for 42 years in my district, working with police for 42 years. Many commissioners, many deputy inspectors, many captains. I sit here today speaking to you on behalf of my support for the NYPD and my district. NYPD are law enforcers. They train to serve and protect, while our city council refuses to work with the NYPD. Our city council gives criminals free access to more crimes. They show you their decisions, and they are not of sound mind to benefit our New Yorkers and their decisions. NYPD is the best in the world. I am a proud mother of 2 NYPD daughters, sergeant and detective. I have 2 grandchildren going on the job. My son-in-law is a detective, and I am the 49th Precinct Clergy Council minister. I'm also retiree of the Board of Education. I'm very concerned with what's going on with this meeting today because I would like you to give me your full undivided attention. There are many programs that the NYPD has for our children. The Explore program. I graduated from the Civilian Police Academy. I share this with you to know that the NYPD has family and friends and communities that love and support them. They serve 8.3 million New Yorkers, and we have to let them do their job. We have a Mayor Adams and Commissioner Caban, who is the greatest commissioner to bring changes for our community and public safety. This is what we want. We only want our Mayor Adams and NYPD Commissioner Caban to dictate policing and police procedures. The only person that has a problem with the NYPD is Public Advocate Williams. His testimony should be void for his offers because he offers no solutions. This circus of crime must be stopped. Look at who you vote for. Do not give City Council the authority to make public safety decisions that they are anti-police. I am in the conversation with police and community as a clergy for over 42 years as a children organization director and programs for the NYPD. It works. Last week, there were 3 shootings within 24 hours, and I would like them to explain to the victim's family that their children could have been safe and they could have better laws. At none of these funerals that I have attended, from Lysandra Feliz, Junior's mother, Eve Hendricks, Brandon Hendricks' mother, to Kevin Simmons, which his mother just buried him the day before yesterday. There was no politician there except NYPD support. When does this circus stop? This demonic bail reform is a mess. Williams is not an expert on NYPD. All elected officials have defunded the NYPD and have NYPD details, and they say that we are not safe, but they're safe. They're the ones that are safe. I stand with the NYPD. I remember the NYPD police officers who have lost their life. Jonathan Dillon, Maura Rivera.
Ask you to wrap up,
They
please.
have loved to serve and protect while the City Council refuses to work with the NYPD. Community boards. Community Board 11, as a former member, this is very serious matter because as selected by their officials, they sell our community to methadone clinics, community board selected, and they bully community leaders and abuse their volunteer position. As a single parent, I am a parent that was responsible to bring my own programs for my own children and form tenants associations and children programs. It is not the government's responsibility or the NYPD's responsibility to raise the children. They are the parents' responsibility. It is your duty. In response to, this is very important.
Thank you very much.
In response to the Bronx clergy.
If you want to submit testimony, we would love to get it. Thank you. Okay, sir, you're up.
The audio's on. Hi, my name is Christopher Leon Johnson. I'm from Brooklyn. I'm from the 41st Councilman District, and I'm here to support Mona Davids and everybody out here that's for public safety, for real public safety, that is not about supporting a public advocate that travels with 24-hour security detail in an SUV and lives in the military base. Now, what we need to start doing is we need to introduce a ballot initiative for November to repeal the How Many Stops Act, because How Many Stops Act was pushed by the city council with a lot of blackmail and threats, and a lot of council members got threatened with chair leadership positions being lost and tanking up discretionary funding, and lost up big time rooms like Kamala Hanks, who got threatened by the speaker of losing her chair, losing the chair for land use, and getting moved out the room and getting her budget tanked. This needs to be repealed. Intro 586 need to be repealed. And another thing being repealed for November is halt solitary. Now, halt solitary is another bill that jeopardizes corrections officers. It jeopardizes COs. That's all it does. There's a lot of bad people that lives in those prisons, and you can't, the correctional officers are danger. Another thing maybe we need to start doing is to repeal the sanctuary city laws, because what's going on is, look, I'm not anti-migrant. I know a lot of people that's against the sanctuary law. We're not anti-migrant because all of us here are immigrants ourselves. But we have an issue with the criminals that come over here and they have these mopeds and they robbing everybody, they raping women. Just like recently, a migrant went out and raped somebody. A migrant just went out and stole someone's phone, like someone stole my phone when they were so-called selling candy. There's a criminal element in this city that are migrants, and they are exploiting this sanctuary law. And the reason this is happening because as much as the mayor want to do something, you can't even do anything. Like the mayor can't do anything because his hands are tied. So we have to put these on the ballot initiatives to repeal all this. This is a lot of woke stuff. The problem is a lot of these council members, and I'm gonna name them right now. I don't care what they think. Is Sandy Nurse, Chiose, Speaker Adrian Adams, Justin Brand, I call him Fester, Key Powers, Diana Ayala, Lincoln Wrestler, Jennifer Gutierrez, Carmen De La Rosa. These members of the Progressive Caucus, they own the city council. They own the city council with the help of the DSA and the New York Working Families Party. And I understand that this panel right here, this board is trying to do whatever they gotta do to make sure this mayor looks good. And we're trying and restore this to like I'm trying to do and the other people on this forum is trying to do. But this is an uphill battle. These council members are hard to beat.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna say one more thing is we have to start running candidates in 2025 against all these people, because if we don't, they're going to destroy the city.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Raul Rivera.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Raul Rivera. I'm a New York native. I'm a TLC driver, a TLC driver advocate. I want to speak about what occurred in January of this year. We all understand that the Intro 586 was vetoed by the mayor. And a few days later, the city council, the Progressive Caucus, which I call Oppressive Caucus, they vetoed the bill. They had a press conference. They invited a family over. Supposedly this family lost a loved one due to an officer killing this individual. But they never mentioned the fact that in the process of that individual trying to be apprehended, an officer by the name of Brian Mokeen also lost his life. That's that same night. And that was never mentioned during the press conference. I personally filed a complaint with the COIB, Conflict of Interest Board, on Jumani Williams, Speaker Adams, and Councilmember Aviles, because Councilmember Adrian Adams, the speaker, she spoke about moral clarity and transparency. But she had the goal to have a propaganda press conference and invite that family when that individual that was arrested and died in the process because Mr. Mokeen was trying to do his job and keep New Yorkers safe. This individual had open warrants. This individual had a pistol. But when Brian Mokeen was killed, nobody said anything. And I think it's pretty disgusting for the speaker to talk about moral clarity and transparency when she never mentioned Officer Mokeen. I'm from the Bronx. You know, we don't hate cops in this city. There's a lot of things happening in this city, and we need cops in this city. I'm the first one to go and file a complaint. I'll go to the CCRB or IAB. I'll file a complaint. But we got to respect our cops. We can't spit on our cops. We can't fight with cops. We can't try to take their guns away. And we need cops in this city. Another thing I want to say is, in the city council, we have Puerto Ricans. We have Blacks. We have Dominicans. We have Asians. As a driver advocate, we have bills drafted for the benefit of the driver. And it's not the white man that's stopping us. It's not Donald Trump. It's our own people. And I'm going to keep saying this everywhere I go. It's our own people. Blacks, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Asians, they stopping us. They blocking us. Our bills are not being passed. We have a bill that's going to protect the driver. We put a panic button in the driver's seat. He presses that button, notifies the cops. They pinpoint where the cop is, or where the driver's at. I mean, that's common sense. That's public safety, right? You can save a driver, and you can also potentially get a gun off the streets. But it's our own people that are stopping this. And I spoke to Yusuf Salam. He's the chair to public safety. They're not going to pass our bills. They are hypocrites. They gaslight us. It's our own people, the Puerto Ricans, the Blacks, and the
Thank you.
Dominicans. And we're
Thank
gonna
you
call
very
them out. We'll call them out today, tomorrow, forever.
Thank you.
Eliminate the office of public
Thank you.
advocate.
Francisco Marte. And then we'll go back. We have 3 or 4 more Zoom speakers.
Well, yes. My name is Francisco Marte. I'm the president of Bodega and Small Business Group, and I advocate for public safety. We launched a campaign on 2020 that said we support the community and the NYPD. We just need better communication and more transparency. That's what we need. And we need to hold accountable anyone who committed a sex on their job. But we need the police. The police have to be respect. And right now, we be seeing the crime every day. Myself, that involved in all of the 5 boroughs, I can see the problems that bodega, supermarket, everybody's facing a lot of problems. With shoplifting, no consequence. We don't have no consequence. It's shameful for the DA when they say that most of the crime, the community is just for a little amount of people. So what those people are doing outside, so we got to put penalty in them. When we ask them to, somebody committed a small crime, it has to be some small penalty also. So for them to know that it's a consequence and not to follow a criminal career. So right now, we are in the, we have so many back elected officials that they have a lot of powers. And Chomani Williams, the speakers, at the city labels and the state labels. Also, we have the wars like Kerr Hastings, people that they don't believe the penalty to the criminals, that they don't believe that putting penalty to the criminals will reduce the crime. So why they don't put funding so they can create more programs for the youth and for the people to educate, not to violate the law. So we have to work together. We have to bring the city together. That's why we are against the bills 586 because the police need the tools to do their jobs. It's not easy to dominate someone when it's broken the law, it's breaking the law. They don't want to be arrested. I know as a store owner, as a bodega owner, how tough it is to deal with someone that want to do it on their ways. They want to grab something and just walk away because they are tough and you can do nothing. So we have to work together. We have to let the people to they choose if it does law, we can repeat those law, the 586 and so many others that is against the public safety. I believe that the first I forgot now, but every constituent, the first focus of any elected official is that to make sure that the constituent, the people, they are safe. So right now, we, the working class, we are penalty, and the criminals, they are free. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Vishan Mahadeo or Mahado, are you on?
Let me come every day and work. Hello?
Are you presenting testimony?
Yes, I am. My name is Mahadio, and I'm actually a very
Sir, we
deeply
don't
involved
hear you.
community. I'm sorry?
Now we hear you. Okay.
Yeah. I'm a very deeply involved guy in the community when it comes to social services. And I want to bring something to your attention. The Jewish community passed 2 laws in New York City. One is it's called the Pooled Income Trust, and the other one is called the Irrevocable Trust. What it means by those 2 laws is that irrespective of your income level, once you're 65, you get Medicaid. And the Irrevocable Trust means you can own multiple houses and you can still reduce your property tax by 80% and put it in a trust so that when you get elderly or disabled, you can transfer your property to your children. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up, the Jewish community, when they go to city, there's HRA, they are able to get, irrespective of their income level, full food stamp. But our minority community, whether we are Caribbean, whether we are Haitian, we are Jamaican, wherever we are from, when we do the trust and we go to HRA, they're saying, oh, you have enough money, you can only get $32 or $35. That is discrimination against minority. And we need to stand up very firm about that. If they pass a law, it must benefit everyone, not a single group of person. That is one area I have a concern about. The other area is that I was able to challenge the system. I was able to get Senator Sanders to donate $1 million to Phil Rizzuto Park and the borough president to donate, and Donovan Richards to donate $3 million for the Smoky Park. Now, the reason why I bring Phil Rizzuto Park, it's popularly known as Smoky Park. We have people in the night that are drinking and gambling in the park. I bring it to the 102 precinct, and 8 hours later or 12 hours later, they respond when it's not an issue. Then these same people that come in the park urinate in the children area and defecate in the children area. This is unacceptable. So I have been talking to the 102 precinct and the 106 precinct to see if they can send a representative outpost in the park so that there will be a code of conduct.
Thank you. Limar Nesher.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And thank you for your time. Actually, what I wanted to say took a little shift after listening to this man. So I do want to start with the anti-Semitism that is rising in our city and the liberties that everyone in town is taking to speak about the Jewish community and Jewish people as if we are second-class citizens. My kids are Americans. I am an American citizen. For 20 years, I've been a New Yorker. I'm an active parent. And what is going on in our city is really, really scary. Bigots of all sorts, racists of all sorts. A lot of them are not afraid to speak in broad daylight, just as the previous speaker. And a lot of them are hiding behind masks. I'm asking you to protect us. We are the taxpayers of this city, hardworking people. Racists of all shapes of colors are intimidating the Jewish community, the Asian community, the mentally ill, ladies, grappling girls on the subway, beating up women like myself on the subway because I have a Star of David or a Chai on my neck. We are asking to be protected. I encourage the community and the council and our leadership to work together with Department of Education to actually teach what is safety and how to work together. We cannot have those people getting caught and then being released without any ramifications. We don't know how to continue with masking, masked people just doing crimes in our city. Finally, after tapping on that, I would like to tap on other things that people spoke here, just like the mentally ill that are in our streets and the illegal immigrants that we have that are coming and taking places of our homeless and the mentally ill people that don't have beds, we don't have resources for everyone. So there is a say that say, first of all, your city poor come first. What do we do to make sure that we are not taking those beds and the resources that everyone needs for education to teach love, just to teach how to live together? Everything was fine. Something happened. We must stop it. I'm asking first and foremost to restore the mask ban for gatherings of 15 people or more. We cannot have people with masks not being caught, and stop indoctrination in schools so we can literally know what is going on in our schools and make sure that people don't teach to hate each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Jess? Jess? No? Arquian Simpkins?
Hello, good night. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, good night. My name is Client Simpkins. I'm a lifelong New York City resident. I'm also a parent of 33 years, and I have a 17-year-old son that goes to Edward Murrow High School. I'm also a school safety advocate. I'm a co-founder of a coalition, and I'm a school safety agent of 18 years. I see that there's nobody representative of school safety. I understand that NYPD is my parent company, but there's no one from school safety to represent what we do in the school safety division. I'm not going to speak completely on that, but I will say that we're desperately needed. To take away scanning, we need more scanning. We've confiscated over 6,100 weapons in the school safety division through metal detection alone in the past year. And I think that is phenomenal, that those weapons are out of the hands of young people and they haven't harmed anyone else. I will speak about the Murrow situation. My son was a student there the day that there was a double stabbing. And as a parent and as an agent, I was at work when I got that phone call and my heart dropped to my feet. So I'm concerned about the safety. I will say that there's three things that I need that needs to be done away with. Public advocate does not represent the public. He represents his own agenda, his own personal things, and I think that office really holds no weight. It doesn't signify anything. Bail reform needs to be changed. I will speak to something. I had a young man who kept being arrested and for the same crime, and then he eventually ended up killing someone. He stabbed him to death after he stabbed two other people prior and got out. Will I blame this young man? Of course not. I'm a school safety agent, and I'm all about safety, especially young people's safety, but no one did anything. And the adults in the midst use these children, and that bail reform and that raise the age is killing us literally. I was going to say something else, but I wanted to say this, and I'm going to make it quick, short, and fast. Why are law enforcement agencies being vilified by local politicians? Aren't politicians public officials who would be or should be in partnership with fellow civil servants? Safe communities are places where everyone watches out for one another by providing support and assistance when needed. Unsafe communities are places where threats exist that lead to high crime rates, violence, drug abuse, and other criminal acts. Although safe communities must have strong housing, jobs, transport, power, water, and sanitation systems, it also has to have the ability to maintain, repair, and renovate them. I agree with the borough president in this aspect, but this is just part of productive society. This covers mental safety, emotional safety, food security, and remedies homelessness. I ask this of everyone on the call who is going to keep communities physically safe. Who? Realistically, we don't live in utopia, and there are community members who do look to do ill will. Can we then depend on fellow community members to place themselves at risk of harm, imminent danger, or death? Shootings happen, stabbings happen, robberies occur, rape, and onslaught of crimes are being committed daily. Are we to believe that community members and citizens being terrorized within their own community can be able to remain impartial and not face retaliation? Our communities need police. They aren't in place to police communities, but keep them safe. I propose that we go back to them being referred to as watchmen who keep a watchful eye on the community. It's all about wording and narrative. Why are correctional facilities being scrutinized when they take violent offenders off the street, thus making them safer? Yes, jails must have humane environments, and everyone deserves a second chance. But what I'm saying to you is this: heinous crimes will never end, they will never cease, and you will never have a society where no one does crime. You have to take that into advice. And the city's line is 988 for mental people to be called instead of calling 911. So there is a line.
Thank you. Okay, what an evening. That's all I can say. It's been we went over, but that's okay because we are committed to having people speak. I'm going to ask if the commissioners would like to say a final word before we close. And Jackie, why don't we start with you?
Yes, this has been a real productive charter meeting tonight. And I just want to thank everyone for testifying, and because I feel more people now got a chance to hear what's going on in their city, and they are concerned. And from tonight, that you're going to work with the charter revision and help us come up with the best solutions and the best things for our city and our community. So thank everybody.
Thank you very much. Any other commissioners would like to speak? All right. We had a great evening, very productive. Obviously, we have a few more hearings next week and then in July. So we look forward to seeing everybody next week. Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you.